Valdris settled into the kind of quiet that follows a storm. Crews on the Iron Line sent steady updates. Warders slept in shifts. The Redeemers finished sanctifying the breach and handed the ground back to Southern medics. By late afternoon, the palace switched from crisis to coordination. I stood with Luna in a high meeting chamber that overlooked the city. A wall of glass showed tiers of stone roofs and slow-moving air traffic. Inside, a long table was already covered in slates, paper briefs, and cups that had been reheated too many times. Marcus entered first, uniform clean again, posture fixed by habit. Lyralii came with him, every step efficient. Ian followed a beat later, smiling in a way that made the room less tense. Tiamat didn't walk in. She was just suddenly there, near the windows, like the air remembered it owed her a shape. "We'll need 3 tracks," Lyralii said without preamble. "Security, relief, and recognition." Marcus nodded. "Security first. If the Abyssal Kin try for a second push, it will be noise, not another basilisk. We'll reinforce the western slope and lay traps along dry ravines. Patrols double through dawn." Ian flicked a few items from his slate onto the table. "I want Storm Griffin flight pairs shadowing the Wardhouse shuttles for the next 48 hours. If a priest thinks about throwing a drum twice, they'll get a wing full of lesson." I leaned my palms on the table. "Erebus left Redeemers where your medics wanted them. They'll pull out when your chiefs give the word. Valeria has a fatigue map of the Etherite posts along the sector. 3 need replacement, 5 need rest cycles. We're handling the swaps tonight." Tiamat's eyes tracked the maps and then me. "Good. Now the part that feels strange when you've spent a day holding a wall. Celebration." Ian grinned. "I was wondering when we'd get to the fun part." Lyralii didn't smile, but the corners of her eyes softened. "Our people will want it. Our allies deserve it. And, Arthur, whether you like it or not, the continent needs to see what an answer looks like." "I'm not against a dance," I said. "I just don't want the choir shoved into a corner once the music starts." Luna tapped the table with one finger. "They won't be. I'll handle that list." Her gaze cut to Lyralii. "Warders on the dais. Engineers and fence crews first in queue for commendations. The Redeemers included formally with the medics." Lyralii inclined her head. "Agreed." Marcus dragged a fresh plan layer onto the table with a neat hand. 3 days from now. Not tonight. People need sleep. We announce tonight. Confirm tomorrow at midday after the final residue sweep, and start building. 3 days gives us time to secure the city routes, Ian said. Also time for the band to rehearse and for me to pretend I remember how to waltz. Tiamat watched him, amused. "You will step on fewer feet if you sleep." He winced. "Noted." A woman in slate gray stepped in quietly and bowed to Lyralii. She had the calm face of someone who builds impossible things on short notice for a living. "Master of Ceremonies," Lyralii said by way of introduction. "Yara handles our state events." Yara gave me a brief, professional smile. "Lord Nightingale, Lady Luna, congratulations and thank you. If we do this well, your guards will complain the least and the warders will be the last to leave." "That sounds like your usual success metric," Ian said. "Exactly," Yara replied, already placing sticks of colored wax on the plan. "Throne hall of scales plus both side galleries for overflow. Dancing floor at center, dais in front of the tapestries. We'll need extra load-bearing under the chandeliers if we add projectors. The Hall of Ancestors becomes the reception corridor. Dragonbone stairs are a bottleneck. Stagger arrivals." "Security?" Marcus asked. "Layered," Yara said. "Royal Guard at the gates and dais. Nyx Tigers in the galleries. Viper Sappers at the Undercroft with drones. Storm Griffins on the roofline. Louder shields along the balcony edges so the press can stare without falling in. I'll post medics in the north and south vestibules and one team with the caterers, where injuries always happen." Ian opened his mouth. "Trays are heavy," Yara said before he could ask. "And knives are sharp." Luna hid a smile behind her hand. "What about guests?" I asked. "If you want this to lift the whole south, Make space for people who stood today. Don't limit it to families with banners. Yara's wax sticks moved again. Warder choirs from Iron Line sectors 1 to 4. Representatives from the Engineers Union and the Fence Hands Collective. Flight captains from both Storm Griffin and Wormbone. 3 Redeemer elders if Lord Erebus approves. 24 soldiers chosen by their unit leads for merit. And the families of anyone we lost this year. If they want to come. Erebus will approve, I said. He likes being useful more than being dramatic. I'll ask him to keep Redeemers presentable, not frightening. He can wear a bow, Ian suggested. Luna elbowed him lightly. Press. Lyralii prompted. Yara didn't sigh, which I respected. 2 pools. One in the West Gallery for the arrivals, one on the floor behind a restraint line. No microphones on the dance floor. A single press question block at the end of the formal segment, limited to 6 questions. If they start shouting, we play the exit music. Mood? Tiamat asked, unexpectedly. Yara considered. Light, not careless. Grateful, not giddy. I nodded. Then make the first speech not mine. Lyralii's eyes warmed. Agreed. We spent the next hour turning that skeleton into something with muscles. Invitations, security credentials, patrol routes around the Palace District, supply chain for food and flowers, lighting layouts that wouldn't blind the matriarchs, lists of names who had to be thanked first and out loud. The words ball and banquet were said, but the conversation never drifted far from lists that would keep people safe. Valeria sent me a quiet update as we worked. Etherite Post 17 stabilized after a 10-minute rest. Post 22 wanted a replacement and a nice word. I signed off on both. Erebus sent a dry note that 2 Redeemers had been asked for selfies with soldiers. I told him to allow it, as long as no one leaned on a lantern. When we reached the part where Yara asked about the Order of Honors, Luna spoke before anyone else. Choir first, then fence crews, then medics, then command. Marcus did not argue. Lyralii wrote it down. Ian leaned back in his chair and eyed me across the table. You'll need new clothes, he said, mock serious. The continent must not see you in the same jacket twice. I can make this one look different, I said. Valeria purred from the back of my mind. I told her not sequins. She sent back a faint sulk and a pattern that was definitely not sequins and probably still counted. Tiamat watched all of it with the look of a grandmother pretending not to be proud. When the last security overlay snapped into place, she straightened. Good, she said. Now sleep. Marcus actually laughed. Lyralii allowed herself a small one. Ian saluted her like a cadet. We wrapped. Yara promised schedules within 2 hours and vanished with her aides like a magician taking a trick off the stage. The room exhaled. I moved to the window with Luna and looked over the city. Valdris looked back like a living thing. Lights breathing, avenues pulsing with steady traffic, the mountain air carrying faint music from a far plaza. 3 days wasn't long, but it would be enough to turn fear into something else. You're thinking about leaving, Luna said without looking at me. I'm thinking about the other borders, I said. But I'll stay until the city's secure. You'll stay through the ball, she said. We'll see. You'll stay, she repeated flat. I'll stay, I agreed. She softened and leaned her shoulder against mine. For a while we stood like that and said nothing. Footsteps approached behind us. Ian stepped up on my other side. They're already stringing lights across the lower terraces, he said. My mother moves fast. She does, I said. You're going to hate the attention, he added. But you won't hate what it does to the people who stood. I know, I said. That's the only reason I'll stand on a stage. He bumped my shoulder lightly. I'll make sure you only have to dance once. Once is already too many. He grinned and backed away when Lyralii called his name. Tiamat joined us at the glass for a moment. Her reflection looked older and softer. Her eyes never did. As expected, she said again. Then quieter. Be ready to leave the dance early. I figured, I said. Trouble doesn't RSVP. Correct, she said, and drifted away. We left the planning room when the lights dimmed to evening. The palace corridors had already shifted to preparation mode. Staff moving in well-practiced lines, floral workers measuring archways, a pair of engineers discussing load limits under a chandelier while a steward tried to shoo them politely. Luna tugged me toward a side balcony that overlooked a courtyard where a team was testing music. It sounded hopeful. We were halfway across the terrace when high voices carried up from below. Excited, then hushed by a caretaker voice, then excited again. I didn't pay it much attention. The palace always had visitors. We turned a corner near a column of carved obsidian. Small feet hit the marble at a full run. I didn't even get time to brace. She slammed into my side with a thump, arms wrapping my waist, face burrowing into my jacket. Strawberry shampoo, soap that always smelled like morning. The exact weight I knew how to catch without thinking. My heart moved like someone had thrown a stone into it and turned ripples into light. "Daddy!" Stella hit me like a warm comet and squeezed hard enough to dent armor. I dropped to one knee so she didn't have to reach. She buried her face in my chest like she used to when she was small. The strawberry shampoo was the same. The voice wasn't. "You're late," she said into my jacket, trying to sound stern and failing. "I was busy punching a snake the size of a castle," I said. "It took a minute." She pulled back to look up at me. 12 now, long dark hair in a loose braid, eyes bright and sharp the way they get when she's quietly measuring a room. More legs, more confidence, same kid. "You're not funny," she said, but her mouth curved anyway. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," I said, and meant it. "How was the ride?" "Fast. Bumpy over the ridge," she said, then straightened like she was about to brief a general. "Reika wouldn't let me hang out the window." "I like Reika already," I said. Reika appeared the way only Reika can. Quiet, sure, already scanning exits before I even saw her. Violet hair tied up, travel jacket cut for movement, the familiar curve of knives under her coat that palace security pretends not to notice because it makes their job easier. She bowed just enough to be polite. The worry in her eyes didn't bow at all. "You faced a calamity alone," she said. "No accusation, just a fact." "I didn't," I said. "Marcus, Ian, the choir, half the South. And me. I watched the footage," she said. "The part where you told the breath to be rain instead and it listened. The part where you walked through its spine like you were correcting a math problem. You were alone for those parts." "I've been worse alone," I said softer. "I'm okay." She let out a breath she'd been holding since the first alert hit the feeds. "I knew you would win," she said, looking away for a heartbeat. "Because you're you. And also because you sent me a message that said, 'I'm fine' before you were fine." "That was Valeria," I said. "Of course it was." Reika's mouth twitched. She stepped in and laid her forehead briefly to mine. The quick, fierce gesture that means I'm glad you're alive in her language. Then she gently pried Stella off my ribs. "Let him breathe." "No," Stella said. But she slid into my side and stayed there like a cat that now owned the spot. "I'm keeping him." "You can keep him if he drinks water," Reika said, already handing me a bottle she had somehow produced out of nowhere. I drank. She watched to make sure I didn't cheat. Some things don't change. We took a balcony path that looked over Valdris. Staff crossed courtyards with purpose. Engineers pacing archways, florists measuring rails, drones mapping flight paths. The palace had already shifted from crisis to preparation. Lanterns lay in neat stacks. Cables ran like vines. "When's the ball?" Stella asked, tracking a team raising light poles on the lower terrace. 3 days, I said. "Tonight we plan. Tomorrow we announce." "Can I help?" Stella asked at once. "Yes," Reika and I said together. Stella brightened. "What do I do?" "First job," I said. "Make sure we don't forget the people who stood today. Warders, fence crews, medics. They go first. Talk to Luna. She's already making the list." "On it," Stella said. "Second job. Stay within 2 steps of me or Reika when you're not with Luna," Reika said. "There will be important guests and noisy reporters. You don't have to be polite to rude people." "I'm not a baby," Stella said. but she moved even closer anyway. We cut into the planning chamber. A wall of glass gave us the city. Inside, a long table was already buried in slates, paper briefs, and empty cups. Marcus stood straight-backed with a map under his hand. Lyralii signed documents while answering two people at once. Ian leaned on a chair with his usual energy barely bottled. Tiamat stood by the windows without a sound, presence steady as mountain bone. "We'll need 3 tracks," Lyralii said, not wasting a breath. "Security, relief, and recognition." Marcus nodded. "Security first. If the Abyssal Kin try another push, it'll be noise, not a basilisk. We reinforce the western slope, lay traps in the dry ravines, double patrols through dawn." Ian flicked items from his slate to the table. "Stormgriffin pairs shadow the wardhouse shuttles for 48 hours. If a priest even thinks about beating a drum, a wing shows up and adjusts his mood." I added our piece. "Erebus left Redeemers where your chiefs want them. Valeria has a fatigue map for the Etherite posts. 3 get swapped tonight, 5 need rest cycles. We're handling it." Tiamat's gaze swept the table, then me. "Good. Now the part people pretend is easy when they're tired. Celebration." Ian grinned. "I was hoping we'd get to that." Lyralii's eyes softened. "Our people will want it. Our allies deserve it. And the world needs to see what an answer looks like." "I'm not against a dance," I said. "I just don't want the choir shoved into a corner once the music starts." "They won't be," Luna said from the far side, golden eyes bright. She had slipped in without me noticing, amethyst hair caught back, sleeves rolled to the elbow. "I have a list." A woman in slate gray stepped in, bowed to Lyralii, then to the room. "Master of Ceremonies Yara," Lyralii said. "She builds impossible things on short notice." Yara gave me a quick, professional smile. "Lord Nightingale." "Lady Luna." Her gaze flicked down to Stella and warmed. "Princess Stella." "I'm not a princess," Stella said, polite but firm. "But how can I help?" Yara slid a smaller slate across to her. "We'll read names during the honors. Choir first as promised. Then medics, fence crews, unit leads. Can you help Lady Luna sort the order and mark names to highlight?" "Yes," Stella said, already pulling a chair next to Luna. She read the template once, frowned in thought, then started rearranging rows with fast fingers. "If we do 5 names per card and keep the distance from the dais to the left stairs clear, the line won't block the medics. Also don't put 2 people from the same unit too far apart, or their families will have to keep getting up and down." Yara's eyebrows rose. "Very good." Stella's brain has always loved patterns. Numbers are her favorite game. She tapped the screen again. "If the reading speed is 2 seconds per name and applause hits every 10th, that's about 90 seconds a card. If we have 60 cards, that's 90 minutes. Too long. We should split medics and fence crews with a song between so people can breathe. The orchestra can play under the names to smooth the clapping and keep the pace." Luna stared at her like she was watching a flower bloom under snow. "Yes," she said softly. "We can do that." Marcus spoke practical. 3 days from now. Not tonight. People sleep first. 3 days gives us time to secure routes, Ian said. Also time for the band to rehearse and for me to remember how to waltz. Tiamat looked amused. "You will step on fewer feet if you sleep." "Noted," Ian said, grimacing. We sketched the shape. Throne Hall of Scales for the main event. Both side galleries for overflow. Dancing floor at center. Dais in front of the tapestries. Extra support under the chandeliers if we add projectors. The Hall of Ancestors becomes the reception corridor. Dragonbone stairs will bottleneck. We stagger arrivals. "Security?" Marcus asked. "Layered," Yara said. "Royal Guard at gates and dais. Nyx Tigers in the galleries. Viper Sappers at the Undercroft with drones. Storm Griffins on the roofline. Loud shields along the balcony so the press can stare without falling in. Medics in north and south vestibules and 1 team by catering, where injuries always happen." "Trays are heavy," Ian said. And knives are sharp, Yara said, already writing it down. Stella tugged Luna's sleeve. Can we make a kid's corner? A what? Luna asked, caught. A place for soldiers' kids and warders' kids if they come, Stella said, gesturing with both hands. With food that isn't scary. A screen with dragons, and a quiet spot to sit. Also someone to help if they get lost. Luna's smile started small and then grew. Yes, we will. Yara moved 3 colored sticks on the plan. North Gallery, quiet zone. 2 staff from the palace school. 1 medic team and 1 redeemer if Lord Erebus approves. We'll run a kid-friendly camera feed so they can watch the honors without the press crowd. Erebus will approve, I said. He likes kids. He hides it badly. Guests came next. Invites go across all continents, Ian said. Ouroboros will help manage arrivals so we don't clog our air corridors. I'll have Valeria work with traffic ops, I said. Staggered approach lanes. Mountain pads as overflow. No flights over ward houses after midnight. Yara checked a list. Confirmed in principle. Mount Hua delegation led by Princess Seraphina. Slatemark Empire senior envoys. Western Council sends a Grand Marshal. Northern Royal Envoy. Academies and Beast Bloodline houses. Media from all 4 continents. Reika spoke without looking up from her map. Foreign security attachés will crowd their VIPs. Mark zones. No weapons bigger than sidearms inside the hall. Everyone checks blades at the door, including ours. Even mine, Ian said. Especially yours, Reika said. Stella, head down, kept sorting names. If we seat warder families along the right aisle, they can reach the dais fast. The left aisle can be medics and engineers because their groups are bigger and they'll need wider paths. She made a face. Also, please don't put the kids near the dessert tables. The tables will lose. Yara actually laughed. We'll rope the sweets until after speeches. Tiamat's voice cut soft and sure through the room. Add a moment of silence. Early, not at the end. Let people laugh after they cry. Yes, Lyralii said, writing it herself. We kept going until the map looked like a living thing. When the list started to repeat and the same questions came back dressed as new ones, Tiamat drew a line under it. Enough, she said. Sleep makes plans brave. The room exhaled like it had been balancing a plate. We stepped into the corridor's cooler air. Staff voices drifted from down the hall. Stella slid her slate under her arm and took my hand. You'll dance with me, she said, not a question. Always, I said. And you'll smile when people say thank you, she added, narrowing her eyes like a tiny general. Even if your face doesn't know how. I'll try, I said. It's easy, she said. Think about pancakes. I'll practice, I said, and she squeezed my hand like a promise. We walked toward the balcony. The city below looked like it was breathing. 3 days. A hall to fill with the people who held the line. A world that needed to see them. We were back in the planning room before breakfast. The night crew had turned Yara's wax sticks into real layouts. Screens showed seating blocks, entrance routes, fire lanes, and camera paths. The city map in the corner had turned into a web of green and blue lines, arrival corridors and return lanes, layered over Valdris like lace. Stella was already in a chair with Luna when I came in, feet tucked under her, braid half undone from thinking. She had 3 slates in front of her. On one, the lists of names. On the second, a simple spreadsheet with time slots, aisle widths, and little notes like don't put Aunt Mara next to brass band. On the third, a sketch of the kids' corner that included beanbags, a dragon documentary playlist, and a box labeled Quiet Toys. You've been busy, I said. I couldn't sleep, she said, not apologizing. If we read 5 cards, pause for 1 minute of music, then read 5 more, the honors will be 45 minutes instead of 90. Also, we should put chairs with armrests in the first 2 rows so older people have something to push up from. Luna tapped the slate. She is correct about the chairs. Stella turned the second slate toward me. If arrivals are capped at 100 people every 10 minutes and we open 3 side gates instead of 2, the outside line won't wrap around the block. But we need guides every 20 meters to keep people moving. If each guide can redirect about 30 people per minute, then 4 guides per gate is safe even if someone stops to take pictures. Good, Yara said, leaning over to see. We'll put the guides where you marked them, and we'll tape arrows on the floor so even the stubborn ones have help. Reika came in with 2 security chiefs in tow. She got right to it. 2 rings of access. Inner ring, Vizirian family, allied heads, warders, engineers, honored soldiers, unit leads, medics, Redeemer elders, my people, Arthurs. Outer ring, foreign delegations, diplomats, nobles, academy reps, press pool 2. Loud fields on balcony rails so no one leans until they learn manners. Ducks? I asked. Drones already ran them twice, she said. Vipers found 3 dead ends. We're sealing them. Undercroft routes are roped and staffed. I stole 2 cooks with loud voices to help move people. They were delighted. Marcus arrived from the Iron Line with dust still on his boots. No movement on the ridge, he reported. Ward houses are clean. Fence posts 22, 27, and 38 replaced. Your Redeemers left less residue than our old fumigators. Tell them that, I said. They like being complimented for housekeeping. I will, he said, dead serious. Lyralii swept in with Yara. Announcements go out at noon, she said. We'll confirm the date and time and tell the continent this is for them. We need a line about why, Ian said, flipping a coin he wasn't supposed to have indoors. Not just that we're throwing a party. Light, not careless. Grateful, not giddy, Yara said. We honor the people who stood. We remind the world that calamity is a situation, not a crown. We show them what answer looks like. Tiamat stood by the window again, eyes on the city, listening to all of it. Every time the room hesitated, a glance from her made it move again. When the press plan came up, she spoke. 2 pools, she said. 1 for arrivals, 1 on the floor, both with clear lanes marked. Short questions after honors. If shouting starts, play the exit music. Already in the run sheet, Yara said. Stella raised her hand like a student. What about people who can't come? Lyralii turned to her at once. Tell me what you have in mind. A live feed with captions and a list of names scrolling at the bottom so families in other cities can see them, Stella said. And a way to send a message back so they can clap from far away. Yara tapped her slate. We'll add a public wall in the West Gallery that shows incoming messages. Moderated. We can also partner with local halls so people can gather and watch together. Stella nodded, then frowned at her numbers again. If we set the orchestra volume to half during the reading, the average applause per name drops from 2 seconds to 1. That saves half an hour. But we should still let the room breathe after every 10th name. People need to feel things. Luna looked proud enough to burst. You see what matters, she told Stella. We set the program. Lyralii would open with the why. Marcus would speak for the line. I would speak for the answer. The warder choir would sing once at the start and once halfway through, after the moment of silence. Ian would read names with 2 choir elders to share the weight. Luna would give the final thanks for field medics and fence crews. Tiamat would not speak. She would stand and that would be enough. Food was simple and good. No sculpted towers. Bowls you could eat from standing without a disaster. Coffee and tea stations placed where people won't collide. Water everywhere. Music was planned like a battle. Honors first under a thin underscore. Then a waltz for those who needed it. Then songs with a beat that didn't punish old knees. A quiet set after the moment of silence. Not sad, just soft. Press rules were clear. No microphones on the dance floor. No questions during honors. 6 questions at the end, chosen by lot. If anyone tried to make a scene, the orchestra would begin a cheerful march and the floor managers would smile firm smiles. By midday, the statement went live. Drones carried the palace crest across the city sky. The feeds lit up. Messages rolled in from the provinces and from the other continents. Congratulations. Relief. A few loud complaints we always get: wrong time, wrong place, why invite them, why invite us. Yara's team filtered and posted the ones that helped. Reika and I reviewed exit plans, then reviewed them again because exits are where people get hurt if a plan is lazy. She drew 3 extra arrows in the undercroft. I added 2 redeemers to the north vestibule. She stared at me until I drank water again. I drank. In a pause between lists, Reika came to stand beside me. The worry was quieter now, turned into resolve. Next time, she said under the noise. Tell me sooner. I will, I said. She deserved more than that answer, but we were in a room full of work. And also, she added, voice dry again, you're not allowed to fight anything bigger than a city without Rachel on call. She'll be here in time for the ball, I said. Serafina too. The others after. Good, she said. I like when the world sees what our family looks like. Luna handed Yara a final list. The medics, she said. And the fence crews. The Redeemer's elders as well. Lord Erebus has approved 3, I added. He will remind them to look friendly. Stella leaned over the kids' corner sketch. We need 1 more beanbag or 2 chairs, she said, thinking out loud. Because if there are 3 friends and only 2 beanbags, someone will cry. Yara smiled like she had just remembered why she likes this work. We'll add 2 beanbags and 3 chairs. By late afternoon, the machine was running. Valdris had begun to shine. Lanterns went up along the lower terraces. Banners unfurled from balconies. Lines of lights traced the main approaches like gentle rivers. We stepped out to breathe on the high balcony. The city looked like a living thing. Lights breathing, avenues pulsing. Luna leaned on the rail and watched with a look that only appears when a plan is moving and no one is dying. Reika stood a little apart, eyes on the dark, daring it to try something. Stella took my hand, fingers warm, grip steady. You're staying through the ball, she said. Yes, I said. And you'll dance with me, she said. Always. And with Luna and Reika and the others in the order Luna writes, she added, because she knows the order is the point, not the dance. Yes, I said. Good, she said. And you'll smile when people say thank you even if you don't know what to do with your face. I'll think about pancakes, I said. Exactly, she said, satisfied. Tiamat drifted to us, a shadow with warmth. As expected, she said, eyes on the city. Be ready to leave the dance early. Trouble doesn't RSVP, I said. Correct, she said, and was gone again. Night fell and the palace shifted from plan to practice. Staff did a full walkthrough. The choir tested acoustics. The orchestra tuned. Floor managers rehearsed hand signals. Yara stood at the center and rotated slowly, seeing angles no one else could see. Stella pointed at the far wall. Names on the outside too, she said. Big. Yes, I said at once. So people walking by can see them. She nodded, satisfied by the promise inside the answer, then yawned so hard her eyes watered. Reika put a hand on her head and turned it into a gentle guide. Luna fell into step on her other side. We paused at the last balcony. The city breathed. 3 days. A hall to fill with the people who held the line. A world that needed to see them. After that, more borders. More snakes that thought they were stories. Tonight we had lanterns and lists, a child's hand in mine, and the right people in the right room. That counted. The throne hall of scales had never looked softer. Lanterns floated like tame stars under the ribbed crystal ceiling. The dragonbone arches threw back a warm glow. Along the outer walls, names scrolled in steady lines. Warders, medics, fence crews, unit leads, each one catching applause as the camera feed highlighted a face in the crowd. The orchestra tested a gentle chord. Drones drifted at approved heights like curious birds. We'd made it through the hard part. Lyreliai's opening had landed clean. Marcus spoke for the line with a soldier's plain truth. We took the moment of silence early, like Tiamat asked. The quiet was full and honest. Ian read names with the 2 choir elders. Steady cadence, pauses where the room needed them. Luna closed the honors with thanks to the healers and the people who held the fence when it wanted to break. No drama, just weight and gratitude. Now the floor belonged to the living. Daddy? Stella whispered from my side, tugging my sleeve. She'd installed herself as my handler after the honors. Slate in hand, braid already slipping from all the motion. Stick to the plan. Okay? What plan? I asked to make her roll her eyes. The dance plan, she said, tapping the slate. Order matters. Also hydrate between partners. Yes, ma'am, I said, and took the offered glass just in time. Reka stood 2 steps behind us, half in shadow, half in silk. Palace security had inspected her twice and then quietly asked her to watch the inspectors, which amused both of us. She met my eyes once. The message was simple. I'm here. Also, don't drift too far from our ring. The palace announcer's voice carried cleanly over the hall. Presenting the Mount Hua delegation, led by Her Highness, Princess Serafina. Heads turned. The Mount Hua contingent swept in like a winter breeze. Serafina walked at their head in pale blue, lines clean, the understated grace only she could turn into a kind of armor. Silver hair braided and pinned with a single jade comb. Ice blue eyes cool and steady until they found me. Then a small warmth thawed their center. She reached me as the orchestra settled on the first waltz. Protocol would have had me offer my hand. Serafina cut past protocol as always and offered hers first. Arthur, she said, voice low enough for me alone. May I have this dance? You may, I said. We moved to the floor. The crowd gave us space without being told. Serafina's frame was precise. No wasted motion. No showy spins. She liked a clean line and a partner who knew where his feet belonged. I saw your edit, she murmured as we turned, referring to the basilisk fight without dragging it onto the floor. Violet mist made of gray. Not ours. Not anyone's. It fit you. It worked, I said. And it looked nice. It did, she said, a hint of amusement in the corner of her mouth. Beautiful, if we are allowed to use that word for something designed to kill. Sometimes the world listens better when the truth is said beautifully, I said. Her hand tightened a fraction in mine. You sound like my grandmother, she said. It suits you less than the gray. That's fair. We moved through the last bars. Serafina's steps feathered just enough to satisfy the watching Mount Hua elders who judge form like they judge battle stances. At the end she dipped her head. A small bow both personal and formal. You did well, she said softly. Rest when this ends. Even if the gray says you do not need to. I'll try, I said. She knew trying was the honest promise. We cleared the floor. Stella was there before anyone else, swapping a tiny wooden token from one pocket to another. One down, she said. Breathe. Next? I asked. Princess Rachel, she said, and bit her lip like she was trying not to smile too widely. She's waiting by the choir seats. I knew before I turned. The music around her felt lighter. Rachel stood near the choir rail, talking with 2 warders in that way she had. Fully, without making them feel like they were taking up a princess's time. White dress, simple lines, hair down in a soft fall that caught the hall's gold. When she looked over, deep blue eyes met mine, and that thin ring of gold in them caught the light. Arthur, she said, and her voice did the thing it always did. Slipped past my head and spoke directly to everything I keep locked tight. It wasn't magic. It felt like truth in a key the body recognizes before the mind does. Rachel, I said, and reached for her hand because anything else would have been a lie. We stepped in. The orchestra shifted into something gentle and open, as if the hall itself wanted to make room for her tone. Rachel didn't lead or follow. She met you halfway and made the rest easy. You're all right? She asked. It should have been a simple question. In her mouth, it was a promise to help carry the answer. I'm all right, I said, and then, because lying to that voice is a kind of sin, I added, tired underneath. The kind that will show up tomorrow if I'm not careful tonight. I'll be careful for you, she said, and if anyone else had said that I would have bristled. From her, it landed like a cool hand over a fever. Promise me one thing. What? When the music ends and the speeches stop and people start pulling you in 10 directions, let me steal you for 5 minutes to breathe. Deal, I said. We turned once more. She laughed at something a child did by the dessert tables, and the sound lifted a cluster of shoulders around us. She didn't know she did that, or maybe she did and chose it on purpose. Either way, the hall felt kinder for it. We finished. Rachel squeezed my hand and drifted back to her warders. A cheer rose from the kids' corner as the Dragon documentary switched to Baby Drakes. Stella clapped once in time with them, then pointed past my shoulder. Rose, she whispered, like a weather alert. Rose doesn't enter rooms. Rooms notice Rose. Tonight she wore black with a line of red at the throat. Clean, sharp, not asking permission. Her hair was loose enough to be a choice, not a mistake. Paradox curled around her like a cat that was pretending not to be one. Zenith Blade, she said when she reached me, dry as always, and held out her hand. Dance with the woman who had to watch the broadcast on a train with bad signal. I owe you better signal, I said. You owe me a dance where you don't get distracted by incoming eldritch nonsense, she said. Practice now. We moved. Rose cut across the expected patterns just to see if I would notice. I did. She smiled, small and pleased. She liked it when life noticed her tells and chose to love them anyway. You changed what calamity means, she said, like we were discussing the weather. Expect headlines. Expect committees. Expect at least 3 old men to write angry essays about humility. I'm not asking to rename anything, I said. You never are, she said. And yet, she leaned in for a turn. The air around us bent for a breath. A quiet paradox glitch that turned the beat into a friend. Also, she added calmly, stop making death look easy. You're going to give the kids the wrong idea. I don't intend to fight a demigod thing every week, I said. Intentions, she said, deadpan, are adorable. We ended with a spin that wasn't showy until you looked at it twice. She winked at Stella on the sidelines, making my kid glow like a lantern, then stepped away with a pat to my chest that was half affection, half warning. It said, I will love you even when you are impossible. Do not make me practice that too often. 2 down became 3. Stella's slate tapped my arm again. Cecilia, she said. Cecilia arrived like midnight. Crisp lines. Crimson eyes that missed nothing. She never overdressed, and somehow that made everything she wore look important. She stopped at an exact, polite distance and offered her hand without a word. Hi, I said. You're an idiot, she said, perfectly even. Dance with me. We did. Cecilia liked a pocket of space not because she needed it, but because she had spent too many years without it. I gave it to her. She measured me for a full minute without blinking. That was her version of relief. You're going to get every government you've ever annoyed knocking on your door, she said. They will call it cooperation. It will be leverage. I know, I said. Let Luna screen the requests before you give away your time for free, she said. Let Reka say no even when it makes you look rude. Let Rachel talk when your words would make enemies. Let Serafina read the traps. Let Rose burn the subtle threats. Let me deal with the unsubtle ones. And you? I asked. I will dance with you when the room thinks it has you, she said. And I will remind you to eat. She did both. When the song ended, Cecilia's hand lingered for a breath longer than was safe for her calm image. Then she let go and returned to the edge like a shadow rejoining the wall. The orchestra shifted to a brighter piece. Across the hall, the warder choir began to hum the bridge they'd practiced to smooth the applause. The crowd loosened around the edges in the good way. Stella slid next to me again, proud and professional all at once. You're doing great, she said. You only looked like you wanted to run away twice. Only twice, I said. Improvement. Drink, she ordered, and I did. I looked across the floor to where Tiamat stood like a quiet mountain, watching everything, interfering in nothing. Marcus and Lyralii were together near the dais, greeting unit leads and their families with real attention. Ian had been swallowed by a circle of Storm Griffin riders demanding a terrible story from training. He was giving them one with both hands. Luna was 3 steps from the kids' corner, holding a toddler while a medic wrapped a knee. Erebus, somewhere deep in the city, was shepherding Redeemers back to the necropolis with instructions about smiling. Next, I asked Stella. She pretended to read her slate even though I knew she had the order memorized. Now comes the part where you survive people wanting to talk to you at the drink tables, she said. Then you dance with me. Best part, I said. Obviously, she said, as if math had proven it. We made it 3 steps before a cluster of foreign ministers intercepted with practice smiles. They had the look of people used to being heard first. It took 5 minutes and 2 carefully phrased answers to move them along without starting an argument about borders. Stella tugged my sleeve again, saw my face, and performed a tiny pantomime of breathing. Inhale, exhale, pancakes. Arthur. A familiar voice called from the stairs. Seraphina had returned with a thin envelope. A note from Mount Hua's elders. They wished to schedule a quiet meeting about what you did with the violet mist. Tomorrow, I said, and she nodded. After breakfast, she amended, because she knows me. Rachel found me before I could prove either of them wrong. 5 minutes, she said, voice soft and absolute. She led me to the edge of the balcony where the hall's noise fell away. We stood in the wind that smelled of lantern oil and mountain night. She didn't make me talk. That was the gift. When we went back in, the orchestra struck the waltz I had been waiting for since Stella made her schedule. My daughter was already standing at the edge of the floor, braid crooked, eyes bright, one hand held out like I'd taught her the first time she asked. May I? She said, trying very hard to be formal. You may, I said, and bowed too deeply on purpose until she giggled. We stepped out. The hall did what halls do when they see a child lead the hero, cleared a ring and pretended not to watch while watching very hard. You're taller, I said. You're old, she answered, grinning. We turned. She kept her frame clean because Seraphina had drilled her for fun yesterday. Halfway through, she switched steps for the challenge and watched to see if I would catch it. I did. She beamed. Numbers are her game, but this is her favorite math, 1, 2, 3 together. As the waltz drew to a close, the orchestra shifted the last bar into a brighter key. The floor clapped in time. Names still drifted on the walls. The kids' corner erupted again as Ember, the bronze drake from the reserve, made a surprise loop on the screen and pretended to sneeze sparks. Stella squeezed my hand hard. This is good, she said. I like when the world is like this. Me too, I said. The song ended. I lifted her hand and bowed to my daughter like she was a queen. She curtsied back, very serious, then immediately ruined the effect by bouncing on her toes. Break, she said briskly. Then you owe Reika a dance or she'll sulk. Reika doesn't sulk, I said. She does, Stella said. In her eyes. I looked over at Reika. She wasn't sulking. She was measuring the room, exactly as she should. But when my gaze met hers, the corner of her mouth tilted, just a little. Stella wasn't wrong. I took a step toward her. I turned. Reika already knew. She stepped out from the shadow of a pillar as if she had always been in motion. Violet hair tucked back, violet eyes steady. She wore simple black with a narrow silver line at the waist. Elegant, quiet, exactly the kind of dress that let her disappear when she wanted. She didn't reach for my hand right away. She scanned the balcony, the doors, the percussion line, the nearest exits. Then she met my eyes and let the tension ease 2 degrees. Arthur, she said. Reika, I answered. May I? You'd better, she said, mouth tipping up just enough to count as a smile. We stepped onto the floor as the orchestra slid into a slow waltz. The room understood the pairing and gave us space. Reika fit under my arm like she belonged there, frame light but secure, posture perfect in a way that came from 1,000 hours of drills. She didn't dance to be seen. She danced to see. Her eyes kept moving, over my shoulder, past my ear, back to me. You scared me today, she said after the first turn. No preface, no softening. I knew you would win. I still hated every second of it. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be sorry, she said. Be alive. That I can do. She breathed out. Her hand on my shoulder settled. We moved through the next figure. Reika never wasted a step. Every pivot had a purpose. Every glide set up a sight line. She angled us through a gap where she could catch the reflection in a window and use it to watch the dais without looking at it. Then a slow turn that slid us past a knot of ministers just close enough to overhear a word they didn't mean to say. You're working, I murmured. I'm dancing, she said. The room is the room. This is why she calms me, I thought. She doesn't pretend. She just chooses. Any pain? She asked, quieter. No, I said. The gray did its job. Luna did the rest. And you didn't let the gray do all the job at once, she said, not asking. Good. We drifted past the kids' corner. Stella was counting beats with her fingers and mouthing numbers at me. When she saw Reika's eyes flick over, she flashed us a thumb up like a tiny coach gas station signaling a pit crew. Reika's mouth softened. She grew again, she said. She says I'm the one who's old, I said. You are, Reika said. Old men shouldn't fight calamities alone. I wasn't alone, I said. No, she agreed. You never are. We moved through a slow, clean pattern. Reika shifted us left a step to avoid a server without looking down. She did it by pressure alone, and I followed without thought. It wasn't a dramatic dance. It was honest. Reika liked honest. You know I believed you'd be fine, she said after a beat. I still rehearsed what to do if you weren't. What did you decide? I asked. Everything, she said. Then I would rest, and then I would do everything again. I swallowed. Reika. It's not a speech, she said. It's a plan. I know. She changed step, letting me lead into a tighter rotation. For 2 bars, she stopped scanning and let herself be with me. Fully. Her head rested, just for those heartbeats, against my shoulder. The line of her body eased. The sound of the hall blurred into rhythm and breath. This is good, she said softly. I like when the world is like this. Me too, I said. She pulled back, recovered her eyes, and the guard returned. It was never far away. Reika's love was a wall around the people she chose. I leaned into it and let it anchor me anyway. We slid toward the balcony edge. Tiamat stood there, speaking with Lyralii in low voices. Marcus was shaking hands with a group of fence engineers. One of them was crying and trying not to show it while Marcus pretended not to notice and gave him a task to do instead. Ian laughed with his riders, then winced when his bruised ribs reminded him he'd been under a basilisk's gaze. Luna in human form was kneeling beside a kid with a scraped elbow, pure light flickering like a firefly at her fingertips while she taught proper bandage technique with the seriousness of a surgeon. This is family, Reika said, following my glance. Do not forget it when the world tries to make you a symbol again. I won't, I said. Try not to, I corrected to myself. She snorted barely. Better. We moved back toward the center as the music swelled. Reika's steps shifted to something looser, as if she had decided the room was stable enough to indulge in a touch of grace. She liked small flourishes no one else noticed. A wrist tilt that made a turn cleaner. A half-beat delay to make a catch feel earned. She had taught me those things in private, the same way she taught me a dozen ways to end a fight with one finger and a truth about myself I didn't want to face. Breathe, she said when I forgot. Habit. I did. Air in, air out. The tight coil in my chest eased. It had been there all day, even after the cut, even after the quiet. Good, she said. Can I tell you something? I asked. Yes. When I stepped onto the road today, I knew I would win. Not because of the gray. Because you were in the world, I said. And because Stella would scold me if I didn't. Reika didn't blush often. She didn't now. But her eyes warmed in a way only I got to see. Acceptable answer, she said. We turned once more. The waltz drew toward its end. Reika angled us so we finished near a shadowed alcove instead of the center of the floor. A small courtesy to a man who hates being looked at while clapping happens around him. We stopped, and she didn't let go of my hand right away. "You're doing too much," she said. "Let us do more." "I will," I said. "I will," I said again, and this time it was true. She nodded, satisfied, and finally let her hand slip from mine. Before either of us could move, Stella appeared between us like a coin popped from behind someone's ear. "Perfect," Stella announced. "Percentage of flawless footwork, 86. Reika lifted an eyebrow. "Only 86? You were watching the doors too much," Stella said gravely. "But Daddy stayed in frame and didn't step on your dress, so overall score is high." "We'll practice," Reika said. "Tomorrow," I said. "After I sleep." "After breakfast?" Both of them said together, and then smirked at me when I sighed. The orchestra drifted into a softer piece. The floor thinned. Servers moved in with fresh trays. The hall breathed like a living thing. And then the air went wrong. It wasn't wind. It wasn't pressure. It was the feeling you get when a lift shudders between floors or a drone's gyros fight a glitch, small, definite, undeniable. Music faltered and caught. Drones adjusted height without being told. Conversations trailed off mid-sentence as if a hand had lightly pressed 2 fingers to 1,000 throats at once. Reika didn't ask. Her body went from soft to steel. She shifted half a step to place herself between me and the grand doors without making it obvious. Her right hand was empty. I knew 3 weapons inside that emptiness. Tiamat lifted her head. The room felt like a lake whose surface had gone perfectly flat. Marcus's hand found the spear that wasn't next to him because this was a ball. He looked down, remembered, and straightened with his shoulders alone. Lyreliai's eyes narrowed the way a cat's do when it decides which way a threat will move. Ian took 1 step forward and then stopped, remembering too many eyes. The grand doors didn't slam. They opened politely, like a host was about to make another announcement. A hush spread from the threshold to the balcony in a clean wave. She stepped inside. For a second, my mind tried to slot her into one of the familiar categories the world uses to stay calm. Human, elf, dragon-blooded, beast-line. None of those fit. She looked human the way a statue looks human. Every line in the right place, symmetry just a shade too exact. Skin like the inside of a pearl. Color there, but it changed when you blinked. Hair black until the light caught it and turned the strands the color of distant stars. Her eyes were the strangest part. At a glance, they were a soft gray. Look longer and you saw fine rings moving inside, as though her pupils were reading. She walked like gravity had chosen her and the room agreed. No aura flare, no magic flash. Just presence that made the hall feel like a smaller container than it had been a breath before. 2 royal guards lifted hands half an inch and froze, not by force, but by the sheer common sense of any animal that has just noticed a bigger animal. The woman smiled the way a person smiles when trying to seem less alarming. It didn't quite work. She looked at Tiamat first. Tiamat didn't blink. Then her gaze to me. "Hello, humans," she said, voice warm and clear. Like a note played on an instrument I didn't know. The hall did not breathe. And then the drums remembered to beat again. No one breathed. The grand doors stood open. The woman who had said hello took 1 unhurried step into the hall. Then another. Her presence changed the space without a single flare of aura. It was in the way she stood, the way her eyes moved, the way the room began to behave as if it had always been meant to hold her. Tiamat moved first. The radiant dragon didn't rise or roar. She simply turned, and the hall turned with her. Her voice carried warm and steady. "Guest rights are honored in my hall," she said. "State your name and purpose." The woman bowed, not deep, not shallow, exactly correct. "Lyra Vian," she said. "Crown Cantor of the Centauri, envoy of the 7 who stand against the demon lords. I come with greeting. I come with assurance. I come with purpose." Marcus stepped forward as host. Lyreliai matched him half a pace to the right. Ian held position at his father's back, jaw set, hands loose. Guards tensed, then eased when Tiamat did not move to stop Lyra's next step. Lyra bowed a second time, this one to Tiamat alone. Dragon Empress, she said softly. Your name reached us long ago. It is an honor to stand in your presence at last. It had been centuries since anyone used that title. A murmur moved through the hall. Tiamat's lips curved. Barely. Your courtesy is accepted, Tiamat said. Speak, Lyra Vian. Lyra straightened and let her gaze pass over the room. Her eyes paused on Luna in her human form, and something like fondness touched her expression. She bowed her head a fraction, respectful without presuming closeness. Then her gaze met Arthur's for the first time. Arthur Nightingale, she said, simple as saying day has come. You truly are special on this earth too. Arthur didn't answer. He didn't have to. The hall heard it as fact, not flattery. Lyra let the silence sit for a heartbeat, then began. I stand here for 7 peoples bound in common cause, she said. You may call us the Septem Concord. We do not rule each other. We hold to shared laws and fight the same enemy. Each of our peoples has a leader who stands at the rank you call divine. Together we have held back demon lords where they rise. She did not raise her voice to make it carry. She didn't need to. Everyone in the hall was listening. The Concord has watched your world from far away, she went on. We do not step lightly into young skies. We wait for signs. We wait for will. We wait for proof that a world can carry itself forward without breaking under our help. Her eyes swept across the Iron Line officers, the ward choir, the families in their best clothes. In you we see that proof, she said. Twice your world has raised a hero. You have held against cults that would hollow out your cities. Your southern line stood when a calamity pressed down. Your disciplines are modern, your customs old, your hearts unwilling to kneel to despair. And among you walks something we have not seen for a very long time. Her gaze returned to Arthur. She did not name the gray. She didn't have to. The crown above his brow was dim now, but every person who had watched the ridge understood. So we come with an offer, Lyra said. Join us, not as subjects, as partners. She lifted one hand and lowered it, a small gesture that asked for calm, not attention. If you accept, the Concord will open stable gates above your seas and place them where you choose. We will build wards that blunt miasma before it nests. We will train with your soldiers and healers without demanding your doctrine. We will share craft that helps your engines endure demon weather and keeps your cities from choking when the sky turns wrong. Her eyes moved to the ministers at the left rail, then to Marcus and Lyralii. In return, we will ask you to sign the edicts we all keep, she said. No bargains with demons. No weapons that rot the laws your children live under. No binding of mythical beasts against their will. When demon incidents rise past a threshold, you will fight with us under a joint command agreed in advance. When your cult leaders fall into your hands, you will bring evidence to a tribunal we can trust together, whether it sits here or with us. She paused there. A minister from the coastal bloc inhaled sharply, measuring costs. Lyra did not press. This is not a net, she said. We tune, we do not rule. You will keep your crowns and your councils. Your lines will be your lines. We will hold them with you. She turned back to Tiamat again, and this time she did not speak to the hall at all. Elder, Lyra said, and that single word held more respect than any title. If Earth accepts, we will ask your witness for what comes next. The Concord's entry tests are simple by design. 3 measures only: restraint, courage, wisdom.
No spectacle.
No blood games. Tiamat's eyes warmed with something like approval. Your tests sound clean, she said. I will hear the full terms later. For now, say what you expect of this hall. Lyra inclined her head. I expect nothing without consent, she said. Tonight is for your dead and your living. I bring no demand. I bring time. She looked up toward the high windows and the starlit black beyond. The window for freely placing large wards is not long, she said. Something in your outer sky has started to test the lanes. Not a lord. Not yet. But if we wait months, not weeks, we will bleed more than we need to. She let that land and did not flog it with more words. Lyralii stepped forward a half-step, voice smooth. "Envoy Lyra," the queen said, "the House of Vizirion thanks you for this offer. We will convene a council at dawn with our allies and our elders. Tiamat will preside. You will be our guest while we listen and decide." Lyra bowed. "It is enough," she said simply. Ian glanced at Arthur, then at Tiamat. He wanted to say something and chose not to. Marcus did not move from his place, but the tension in his shoulders eased. The ward choir on the mezzanine began to breathe normally again. Officials whispered, already building lists. The orchestra did not resume. No one wanted to trample this moment with a song. Lyra turned slightly and, for the first time since she had spoken her name, allowed herself a smile that reached her eyes. "Luna," she said gently, using the name without the weight of prophecy. "I greet you, kinmaid and true." Luna blinked, surprised, then stood and bowed back with the awkwardness of someone learning what to do with new human limbs and old dignity. "Welcome," she said, "and thank you for speaking plainly." "We try," Lyra said. "Plain speech fits brave halls." She returned to Arthur last. There was no challenge in her look. There was curiosity and a flicker of gladness, as if something she had been told and something she now saw had matched. "When I say you are special, Arthur Nightingale," she said, "I do not mean only strength. I mean that you cut the world in a way that leaves more of it standing after you pass. Not many can do that. Fewer choose to." Arthur didn't know what to do with praise like that. He gave her the only answer that felt honest. "I had good teachers," he said, and inclined his head toward Tiamat, toward Luna, toward the Vizirians, toward the warders who had sung until their hands shook. Lyra accepted the answer like a small gift. "I will ask one thing now," she said. "Not a demand. A question offered in front of those who have a right to hear it." She lifted her hand and let it fall, careful again, keeping the rooms calm. "The first of our 3 measures is restraint," she said. 2 anchors hold a field. I would ask you, Arthur Nightingale, to stand with me as the second anchor when we demonstrate what restraint looks like on a living line. Not tonight. Not in this hall. Soon. Tiamat may choose the ground and the hour. Your king and queen may set the rules." She looked to Tiamat and waited. The dragon's crimson eyes weighed, then nodded once. "I will choose a place that deserves to keep standing," Tiamat said, "and I will invite those who must see." Marcus looked at Lyralii. She gave the smallest nod. He turned back to Lyra. "You will be housed in the East Wing," he said. "Anything you need, ask. I will send my engineers to listen when you are ready to speak with them." "Thank you," Lyra said. "We will keep our footprint small." There was a rustle then as the spell of stillness finally broke. People began to speak in low voices. The orchestra leader lifted his hand, looked to Tiamat for permission. Tiamat inclined her head, and the music returned, soft, respectful, as if the hall itself had decided to step lightly. Lyra stepped back, not to the doorway, but to an open space near the balcony, neither claiming center nor retreating. 3 small rings gleamed on the pin at her collar, the only mark she wore of who she represented. She did not try to take more of the night. Reka exhaled very quietly at Arthur's side. Seraphina watched Lyra the way a craftswoman studies a new tool and imagines what it can build. Rachel's smile was thoughtful. Rose's eyes narrowed in interest and trouble. Ian rolled his shoulders like a man who has waited for war and now sees a door that might lead somewhere better. Lyralii was already assembling a list in her head that would take 3 hours to read. Marcus was thinking about maps. The ward choir was thinking about sleep and warm tea and the feeling of not singing for a while. Tiamat stood like a mountain under lanterns and watched the envoy who had called her Dragon Empress. Her gaze flicked once to Arthur. Said, "The world is widening. Hold steady." Lyra did one last thing before the night moved on. She lifted her hand, palm open, and spoke a single clean promise, without trick or glow. "The Concord will not ask for what is yours," she said to Arthur and Luna and, by clear extension, to Tiamat. "We will ask to learn beside you." If we fail to keep that line, you may cast us out, and I will be the first to go." No one in the hall knew what her people's oaths felt like when they bound. She did not show it. She did not need to. "Then be welcome as a guest," Tiamat said. "Dawn comes quickly. Eat and rest." Lyra bowed one last time and stepped aside. The hall let out the breath it had been holding. Conversation swelled. Strings rose. Stella tugged Arthur's sleeve with wide eyes that said she had 1,000 questions and would ask them all if allowed 5 minutes alone with a willing target. "Tomorrow," Arthur told his daughter. "We'll listen first." "Fine," she said, already plotting. He looked back toward Lyra. She had turned her face to the windows, watching the night as if she could see a road through it. When she sensed his attention, she glanced over, not surprised, and gave a small nod that said, "Soon." Arthur nodded back. The world had just opened a new door. He would walk through it, but not alone and not rushed. The music rose. The dragon hall breathed. And far above the mountain, where no one in that room could see, something in the outer dark pressed at Elaine, found the resistance steady and paused. "I didn't know I could be surprised like that anymore. I've met dragons, demons, saints, monsters that wear cities like coats. I've split a calamity apart and walked away with breath left in my lungs. But watching Lyra Vian step into the hall and make the room behave like it had always been waiting for her, that reached a part of me I thought was numb. The Seven, the Concord, peoples with a divine on each throne, who fight demon lords in the open and win often enough to still be here. They weren't in the saga of the divine swordsman. Back then, the world felt like a stage with 5 cast members and too many props. Demons, humans, and the usual suspects, arranged by a storyteller who liked tight loops and clean pain. If the 7 existed in that story, they never walked onto the page. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe the world wasn't wide enough. I felt the thought try to dig its hooks in, the old habit of looking backward for answers. I let it slide off. That story is dead. Good riddance. This one is alive, messy, and wider than anything I trained for. I'm done trying to read ahead. Lyra's timing helped. She offered help without grabbing the steering wheel. She called Tiamat Dragon Empress with the kind of respect you can't fake. She looked at Luna the way you look at a sunrise you didn't expect to see again. And when her eyes met mine, she didn't test or challenge. She just said I was special like she had been told, and was glad the report matched the man. Also, yes, she's stronger than me right now. Peak radiant. You can tell without seeing it. The way constants hold around her. The way even an anxious room remembers how to breathe. If we fought tonight, clean duel, no tricks, she'd outstay me by making my edges waste energy. She'd turn my big swings into neat cuts and ask me to be precise for longer than my body would like. And that's fine. I don't need to be the strongest person in every room. I need to be the right person for the job in front of me. Tonight's job was simpler. Reassure the people I love that the floor under our feet hadn't just tilted forever. The hall loosened after Lyra stepped back. The orchestra found its way to soft strings. Ministers started whispering in clusters that would turn into meetings whether they were scheduled or not. Tiamat watched without blinking. Marcus and Lyralii already had lists building in their minds. Ian looked like a man who'd been braced to stand alone and suddenly saw a road that curved toward friends. Stella tugged my sleeve. "Daddy, is she an alien?" "Technically," I said. "Politely, she's a guest." "Do they have math?" she whispered, dead serious. "Knowing our luck," I said. "They have too much." She squinted at Lyra as if she could read equations off the envoy's collar pin. "I want to ask her if their primes behave." "Tomorrow," I told my daughter. "After breakfast." "Fine," she said, and made a note on her slate that probably said, "Interrogate space diplomat about number theory." I turned and found Seraphina already heading my way. She moved like winter crossing a lake. Quiet, clear, no cracks. "She treated our sect with respect," Seraphina said without preamble. "Her words about your violet mist were careful. She knows what not to take." "You like her," I said. "I am willing to like her," she corrected, which from Seraphina is high praise. "Her people tune. we cultivate. There is harmony there if both sides remember we are not the same song. She asked for a technical talk. I said. At dawn I am a diplomat, she said. After the council, I am a craftswoman again. We will speak then. Her ice-blue eyes softened a fraction. And Arthur? You were good tonight. You spoke only when you should and let the weight sit where it belonged. Lyra did the heavy lifting, I said. You killed a calamity this afternoon, she said. You do not need every spotlight. Let this one move. She slipped away to where the Mount Hua elders waited, leaving the air a little cleaner behind her. Rachel arrived next with a cup of tea I hadn't known I needed until it was in my hand. Her voice did the thing it always does, threaded through the noise and reminded my bones that they are allowed to trust someone. How are you? She asked, meaning the real question, not the polite one. Steady, I said, surprised in a good way, and I think relieved. Humans don't have to fight the demons alone. Her smile made the corners of the hall look warmer. That's allowed, she said. Relief. You don't have to hold the world by yourself. Not tonight. Not ever. I took a sip. The tea was exactly the right temperature. Of course it was. I have a selfish request, Rachel added, and when I raised an eyebrow she went on. During the council tomorrow, let your allies take the first questions. Let Ian speak for the line. Let Lyralii shape the terms. Let Tiamat hold the center. When they look to you, answer cleanly. But don't stand in front first. Because my name moves cameras, I said. Because your name moves hearts? She corrected, voice barely above the music. Save it for the moments that matter. It's what heroes forget. It's what makes them break too soon. I let that sink in. All right. She touched my wrist, smile small and fierce. I'll be there, she said, like a promise. Then drifted away to quiet a knot of anxious warders with 3 soft sentences and a laugh that eased shoulders around her. Rose found me with a look that said I had 10 seconds before she started pulling at threads. Treaty language, she said, dead calm. We carve our veto rights into bone. We limit tribunal claims to cult leadership with evidence that would pass both systems. We require joint custody on anything that touches mythical beasts. We define demon tool down to the gasket. I thought you'd be mad this wasn't a fight, I said. She snorted. This is the fight, she said. Words are knives when everyone's smiling. I'll draft with Lyralii's law team. You will read every line I tag and say yes or no. No compromises without my eyes on them. Yes, ma'am, I said. She leaned in for a beat, voice dropping. Also, proud of you, she said, so fast it could have been a trick of sound. Then she was gone, already hunting for a minister to corner. Cecilia didn't come to me. She waited until my orbit brought me near a balcony pillar, then snapped it like a trap. A simple nod that turned into a wall where I could lean. Geopolitics, she said. The North will bristle. The West will try to price it. The East will make it a philosophy problem. The Center will want to rename it. The South will say yes and then work out the pain in private. You forgot the islands, I said. She tilted her head. They will take the ships and ask for 3 more. Can you keep the worst kinds of no from happening? I asked. I can make no cost too much to say out loud, she said. But this is bigger than blocks. This is what kind of world we become with a door to a larger one. I want a door. I don't want a leash. Lyra said they tune, I said. Not rule. People lie, Arthur, Cecilia said. Not like that, I said. Not tonight. She held my eyes a second longer than was comfortable, then nodded once. We'll write the rules anyway, she said, for when someone forgets how to sing in tune. She slipped her hand into mine for one breath and then let it go, a rare soft show of faith before she went to hunt the ugly agreements I would never see. Reka didn't speak until the room thinned enough that the echo under the balcony returned. She had been a black line drawn around the night. Quiet, sharp, catching things before they happened. Now she came to stand beside me and let her shoulders drop 2 degrees. Security posture for tomorrow is set, she said. Inner ring is ours. Outer ring is Viserion guard. Luna will sit behind you, not beside you. Don't argue. I wasn't going to, I said. I like living. Good, she said. Also, if the Envoys people try any private scans, I want to know. If your Grey hates something, step away and I will handle the impolite part. You clocked Lyra at peak radiant, I said. I clocked her at strong enough that honest people don't test their luck, Rekka said. I also clocked that she apologized to the air when she crossed Tiamat's eyeline without being invited and adjusted her path. I like people who apologize to the air when they should. You like her, I said. I am willing to trust her if she keeps being herself, Rekka said. You too. I'll try, I said. You will, she corrected. Breakfast at 7. Yes, ma'am, I said again. She smirked at that and went to check a shadow that didn't need checking. By then, the orchestra had shifted to the last set of the night. The hall's edge energy softened into tired laughter and the sound of relief pretending to be small talk. Tiamat caught my eye across the room and gave me a look that was a whole sentence. Sleep. I checked on Stella one more time. She had fallen asleep in a chair with her slate against her chest. A list of questions for Lyra open on the screen. Do your primes behave? Do you have dragons? Do you have 12-year-olds? Rekka appeared at my shoulder, took the slate, and slid Stella into the carry like we'd done this 100 times. We had. Go, Rekka said. I'll take her. Thank you, I said. Luna caught me at the door. She looked like herself and someone new at once. Adult form clean and calm, golden eyes bright, amethyst hair still a little wild from the kid's corner. She held out a hand. I took it. What do you think? I asked. They smell like promises kept, she said. Lyra feels like a tuned bell. I like her until she gives me reason not to. She called you kin-made and true, I said. Luna smiled, small and private. It was a good phrase, she said. It fit. Her thumb brushed my knuckles. Sleep, she added. You carried too much today. Let the world carry itself tonight. I will, I said, and this time I didn't argue. The corridors back to the guest wing were quiet. The city under the mountain hummed the way tired cities do when they know they have to wake before they want to. I passed a window and looked out at the dark where the road should be. For a second, it felt like the night looked back with interest instead of hunger. Humans don't have to face the demons alone. The council room felt like an engine at idle. Quiet, steady, ready to work. No banners, no drama, just a long oval table of crystal and stone, sunlight falling in clean lines, and chairs filled by people who actually do things. Tiamat sat at the head, not as a queen on a throne, but like a mountain over a valley, present and impossible to ignore. Marcus and Lyralii took the seats to her left and right. Ian sat 2 chairs down from his father, eyes sharp despite little sleep. Ministers, generals, ward engineers, and elders filled the rest. Seraphina chose a place by the technical slate. Rose sat where drafts would land. Rachel picked a seat with a clear view of faces. Rekka walked the perimeter, noted exits, then sat beside me. Lyra Vian entered alone. No guards, no display. She bowed to Tiamat, set a small tri-ring pin on the table, and waited. Envoy Lyra, Tiamat said. You have the floor. Lyra stood and touched a control. A simple projection rose. 7 symbols linked by thin pulsing lines. I come again with greeting, with assurance, with purpose, she said. Yesterday I told you who I am. Today I tell you who stands with me. She tapped the first symbol. 3 nested rings shaped like an ear. The Cantari, she said. My people. Affinities. Light and wind. We work in resonance. Tuning wards, damping shocks, keeping fields from tearing. We don't throw fire or stone. We hold what must hold. Next symbol. A stylized wing. The Nevarii Skyborn, she said. Humanoids with avian traits. Affinities. Wind and lightning. They read currents, break demon weather before it builds, and keep the high lanes safe. A wave crest rolled. The Thalassan tide marked, she said. People of the deep. Affinities, water and ice. They cleanse abyssal blooms, shape cold currents, and keep the lower seas honest. A sun gear turned once. The Hellion Forgeborn, she said. Solar-charged folk. Affinities, fire and light. They build engines that don't choke when the sky goes wrong and shields that drink heat. A broad lantern sigil flickered. The Auric Wardens, she said. Tall, light-marked. Affinities, light and gravity. They set safe roads, hold barriers under shock, and guide evacuations when panic starts. A stone spiral appeared. The terrain stone-bind, she said. Earth-touched. Affinities, earth and lightning. They place anchors that panic can't move and read stress in metal and rock by channeling charge. Last, a leaf circuit glyph brightened. The Verdinal Greenwatch, she said. Verdant linked. Affinities, earth and water. They grow living fortifications, purge toxins, and keep demon rot from taking root in forests and lungs. She let the seven hang a heartbeat, then pulled the lines into a ring. This is the Septem Concord, she said. We do not rule each other. We keep shared laws and fight the same enemy. Our leaders stand at the level you call divine. We fight demon lords where they rise. Sometimes we win clean. Often we win messy. The war is old. No despair in her voice. Just fact. Lyralii leaned forward. How many fronts? For major theaters, Lyra said, swapping the ring for plain arcs. One stable, two active, one unstable. The unstable theater is where demon lords have started to chain rituals across worlds instead of inside one. That is the strain we fear touching your sky. Rose's pen tapped once. If a ritual chain crosses our air, who owns the right of action? You do, Lyra said without pause. The Concord fights in your air only by standing orders signed in advance with you. If we break those orders, our oath breaks our power before you need to. She didn't explain how. She didn't need to. The promise landed clean. Marcus studied the arcs, not Lyra. We don't have your factories. What does help look like next month? Not next decade. 3 moves, Lyra said. First, large wards placed above your seas, 3 wherever you choose. Second, tuning pylons at your hotlines like the Iron Line to blunt miasma spikes before they bite. Third, embedded training teams for ward engineers and medics. We also stabilize lanes for relief and medevac. No troop landings. No advisors to talk over your commanders. Rachel slid in before a minister could jump. Her voice carried that soft music that makes rooms listen. Medical protocols. Exposure control. Long-term care for miasma poisoning. Do you have standards? We do, Lyra said. Our redeemers are field healers and ward priests both. They can train with yours. We leave tools behind when we go. No dependency traps. Serafina lifted a hand. Resonance math, she said. No black boxes for safety-critical parts. If we build or fix, we share the model. Lyra inclined her head. Agreed, she said. There are designs we should not export yet, but everything that keeps your people alive will be open. Reka's turn. Security boundaries. Your drones and ours. Who scans what and what is banned? Our drones don't scan your people, Lyra said. Only lanes and ward loads. If you want proof, pull 3 apart. Rose made a small, pleased sound only a few of us caught. Lyralii did. Lyra added one more clear rule. All 7 species are humanoid, she said. We can have children with humans. But our elemental control is restricted by species. Kentari cannot call stone. Nevarii don't shape forests. Humans are the flexible ones. You carry many paths. That is one reason we are here. Ian stared at the arcs, then looked up. Why now? Because you held, Lyra said simply. Twice your world raised a hero. You held the Iron Line against a calamity. Your lines are modern. Your customs are old. Your hearts do not bow to despair. We wait for signs. We saw them. I waited for a breath and took it. In my old world saga, I said, there was something above demon lords. It gave power to the heavenly demon. The heavenly demon existed here. If that's true, then the one who fed it power does too. Do you acknowledge a demon overlord? The room tilted colder by 2 degrees. Lyra didn't look away. She set one finger on the crystal and, for a heartbeat, looked older. We use names carefully, she said. A lord is already too much for most worlds. What stands above them is not for an open table. Not because your ears cannot bear it. Because the name itself invites the wrong kind of listening. It wasn't a lie. It wasn't an answer. Tiamat's face changed by the width of a blade. If you weren't watching, you'd miss it. I was watching. Fine, I said. Demon lords are enough for today. The room breathed again. Lyralii touched her packet. You said there were 3 measures for entry, she said. Restraint, courage, wisdom. Start with restraint. What do you need? Lyra shut the projection off. No lights, just her voice. We choose a place that matters to you, she said. A site that must not be harmed. We call a controlled stress event there. Not a demon. A hard, realistic test like your worst hours on the line. 2 anchors hold the field so if anything fails, it fails inward. My team can be 1 anchor. I ask Arthur to be the other. Partners, not opponents. All eyes came to me. I didn't stand. I didn't make a speech. I'll do it, I said. Marcus answered before anyone could clap. Conditions, he said. No collateral. My ward engineers own the kill switch. My queen owns the call. Agreed, Lyra said, bowing to both. Tiamat nodded once. We will set the ground and the hour, she said. We will invite those who must see. That was enough to move the machine. Chairs creaked. Pens came out. People who fix things began to turn decisions into trucks, cables, food, and maps. The Concord was offering real help. The price was simple rules we already follow, written so no one can pretend later. I let myself feel something I rarely allow in rooms like this. Relief. We don't have to hold the sky by ourselves anymore. If we prove we can do it without breaking what we protect. First measure. Restraint. Tomorrow we prove it. The plan formed quickly because everyone at the table knows how to make plans turn real. Stormgate Flats, Tiamat said. Sunset. Close to the iron line. Open enough to fail safely. Important enough to matter in people's hearts. Reka spoke while writing. Inner ring is Arthur, Lyra, and their teams, she said. Outer ring is Viserion Guard, ward engineers, med tents. No press. No drones except tagged units we hand out. Any untagged drone is dropped. Rachel runs med, Ian runs air routes. Seraphina lays arrays. Rose brings the ink. Done, Rachel said, voice warm and sure. I want measuring arrays with true timestamps, Seraphina added. If we're going to learn, we learn properly. Place them where you like, Lyra said. We'll share our timestamps too. Rose slid 2 thin documents to Lyralii and Marcus, then one to me. Framework, she said. Edicts summarized. Veto clauses highlighted. Tribunal triggers in red. We sign before the test so no one argues jurisdiction with adrenaline in their blood. Lyralii read in a steady flow that missed nothing. Marcus skimmed like a man who has read thousands of orders and knows their shape. Ian leaned over and grimaced at the tribunal section. Rose didn't budge. It's this or a century of court fights, she said. Pick your pain. Ian looked at Lyra. If we pass, how fast can you plant a pylon? First in 48 hours, she said. Weather willing. The next 2 within the week. It never is, Ian said, but a small smile betrayed him. Marcus tapped a clause. Mythical beasts, he said. No bindings. No cages. No loans. We put it in bone. In bone, Lyra agreed. Reka lifted her eyes. Private scans are banned, she said. No cataloging our people by potential, while calling it safety. Lyra didn't flinch. Agreed. If anyone on my side breaks it, you give me their name and I end their work here. Seraphina glanced at me and then Lyra. Resonance overlap between your harmonics and our pure light can drift under stress, she said. We'll need a small shared test before sunset. Empty field. Noon. We'll be there, Lyra said. Bring one Mount Hua senior and one ward engineer who enjoys insulting me if needed. Marcus initialed a final line. Lyralii signed. Rose stacked the pages, satisfied. Filed. The Queen said, "We move." The room emptied into motion. Ward engineers called trucks. Quartermasters pulled tents and heaters. Pilots drew routes. Ian tried to slip away to fly the test path alone and got caught by Lyralii, who made him take a wing. He took a wing. Lyra walked straight to the ward engineers and spoke their language. Rachel pressed a med packet into a Redeemer's hands and made him laugh. Seraphina argued angle tolerances with two elders until they nodded in unison. Reka's voice flattened 3 different security problems so they would not be problems later. I didn't forget my own question. Demon Overlord. In my old saga, it sat behind the curtain and pulled strings. The heavenly demon in this world had been real. That means the thing that fed it power is real too. Lyra didn't deny it. She just refused to name it in a room with open doors. Tiamat's face told me enough. Not now. That was fine. Today was about restraint, not secrets. Stella intercepted me in a corridor with a slate full of notes. "Are you going to break the field, Daddy?" she asked. "No," I said. "The point is not breaking it." "Good," she said, and showed me her list titled Restraint Rules. Measure twice. Keep the choir safe. If you must break, break inward. Don't try to be cool, Reka said this one. I laughed. Listen to Reka. We kept moving. Reka peeled off to brief the guard. Rachel and Seraphina headed for medical and arrays. Rose disappeared into a side room with the Queen's legal staff. Ian jogged past with a flight crew. Marcus started 3 conversations at once and finished them all in 2 sentences each. Tiamat watched everything with the kind of quiet that makes frantic people remember to breathe. At noon we met in a dry field for the small test Seraphina wanted. Took 20 minutes. She listened to the numbers, smiled a real smile and said, "We can do this." Lyra shifted one low harmonic I couldn't hear and the arrays stopped drifting. The Kentari's touch felt like gentle pressure on a loose nail, firm, not overbearing. After that, there was nothing to do but let the machine work. We ate something that counted as lunch. I tried to drink tea that wasn't Rachel's and failed. Luna checked on the warders twice, then checked on me, then pretended she hadn't. At last the sun started to tilt. We rode to Stormgate Flats in a quiet convoy. The inner ring rose around the test ground, simple poles, clean lines, clear markings. The outer ring set beyond it, guard, tents, engineers, redeemers. The air felt like the moment before an orchestra starts. Lyra stood across from me at the center point. No speeches. We nodded. Tiamat lifted a hand. "Begin," she said. We anchored. Her light and wind settled like a steady hand on water. My gray stretched like 2 flat pages and told 2 places to touch. The real and the safe. The first pulse rolled in, nothing demonic, but strong. A good copy of a bad hour on the line. Wards shook. Arrays ticked. The ground hummed. We held. The second pulse was sharper. Pressure rose, then dropped. My pond met it and turned shock into calm. Lyra's tuning tightened, pulling a stray ripple back into the lane. Arrays drew clean curves. No cracks. No screams. No drama. The third pulse stacked wrong on purpose, the way real trouble does. For a breath it felt like the air wanted to buckle. I said no. Lyra said no at the same time in a different language. The field listened to both. On the outer ring, Reka's hand didn't leave her radio. Rachel watched red lines on her tablet and told a medic to breathe out. Seraphina's pencil drew a small star and she smiled again. Ian's wing held position over the med tents, not the center, because he had learned something about where heroes should be during tests. We finished without breaking anything. Lyralii gave one crisp nod. Marcus said, "Good." The ward engineers clapped exactly twice, because anything more felt like tempting fate. Tiamat did not move, but the smallest easing at the corner of her mouth was there if you were watching. I was watching. Lyra let out a breath the rest of the field wouldn't notice. "Restraint," she said softly. "Passed." She didn't add congratulations. She didn't need to. Everyone on the flats understood what had just been proven. We could carry high power in a place that mattered and not shatter it by accident. Next 2 measures, Ian said, landing in a rush of dust and grin. Courage and wisdom, right? Not today, Lyraeli said. But she was smiling too. Lyra looked at me across the quiet ground. Humans do not have to fight alone, she said. Good, I said. We'll still fight like it's only us. Do that, she said. It's why we came. The sun slid lower. Crews began packing the arrays with the careful hands you use when a thing worked well and you want it to work well again. The guard checked lanes. Redeemers stowed kits. Rose's framework went from signed for the test to filed for implementation. The first Sea Ward was already being plotted on 3 separate maps, each with a different set of coffee stains. We drove back toward Valdris under a sky that looked wider than it had in the morning. The 7 would place a pylon in 48 hours if weather allowed. If it didn't, they'd wait and try again. That alone told me we had chosen the right allies. Behind that, the unanswered thing remained. The shape above demon lords, the one who gave the heavenly demon power. Lyra hadn't denied it. Tiamat's eyes had said later, I could live with that. Today, restraint. Tomorrow, courage. After that, wisdom. 1 measure at a time. The flats were still settling when Tiamat crooked a finger at me and Lyra. No speech, no flourish, just a small motion that meant follow. We did. She led us to a low rock outcrop at the edge of the grid, half-shadowed by a parked rig. Behind us, engineers were coiling cables and folding tents the way you handle something that behaved and you want it to behave again. The sky had that late gold calm you only get after a good day. Tiamat watched me for a long beat, like she was weighing more than the moment. You keep carrying questions you don't speak, she said. Today you earned 1 answer. Maybe 2. Lyra kept her eyes on the field a heartbeat longer, then turned. If we do this, she said, we do it cleanly. No riddles. Cleanly, Tiamat agreed. She looked back to me. You remember the power behind the heavenly demon. The demon overlord, I said. The one that gave him power in the first place. Lyra nodded. That title is right. Tiamat folded her arms, voice even. Listen carefully. Demon lords are not just rulers, they are thresholds. Each one owns a slice of reality and makes that slice obey. They break cities. Given time, they break continents. We fight them, and we win often enough for the world to breathe between losses. She set the next piece down. The demon overlord is beyond that. Not a threshold. A horizon. Younger than me. And she did not rise the way demon power normally works. Lyra's tone went flat, factual. Demons are born marked. 7 cardinal sins. Pride, greed, lust, envy, wrath, gluttony, sloth. Roughly 14% of demon births align with each sin. That's 98%. The last 2% are born without any sin mark at all. Sinless. Those are treated as weak. Inferior. And she came from that 2%, I said. Yes, Lyra said. No sin. No mark. By their own rules, she should have been nothing. And she broke that rule. Tiamat's eyes were steady. Old grief held still. She surpassed the 7. She bent each sin lord to her will and then ruled them. When I was strongest, divine rank at my peak, she faced me and won. I was the strongest being I knew. She proved me wrong. She broke my kind on our own world and struck me down so hard I fell out of divine and bled years away to live. The wind moved a little dust across the flats. I let the truth land and settle. It didn't crush. It clarified. And now? I asked. Now she is busy, Lyra said. That is why we still have a war instead of a funeral. Busy with what? I already knew, but I needed the words. Tiamat inclined her head. Akasha. The name pulled me back like a hook. The library with no walls. The woman made of law and light. Lips cool against mine when I was dying and too stubborn to stop. The day Mortis Lucida tore me open and she showed me how to hold gray without breaking. The weight of her regard had dwarfed everything I had ever known and still felt kind. God of knowledge, I said. The only being we have seen who can face the Overlord alone, Lyra said. They have been at war in places most eyes cannot see. That deadlock buys us time to build pylons, lay wards, and get smarter. If that changes, time shrinks. I looked at Tiamat. You fought the Overlord twice. Twice, she said. No drama. The first time I was young and certain. She broke my dragons in an afternoon. The second time I was sure I could not lose. I lost anyway. I landed here because I ran out of anywhere else to fall. I breathed out. The gray crown over my brow steadied. The pages behind me turned once and settled. All right, I thought. Scale is real. Nothing new. Just bigger. Tiamat read my shoulders and was satisfied. I had planned to say this later, she said. After a few more lessons. After you failed in useful ways. Why now? I asked. Because restraint is harder than victory, she said simply. You held today. People who cannot hold break when they hear there is a horizon they can't reach. You won't. Lyra's mouth curved a fraction. I voted for now too, she said. Because you keep reaching for something you haven't named. It's time to name it. Tiamat tipped her head toward the field. You have tasted unity, sword unity, true unity. Mind and body in one song so clean the world hums with you. I have, I said. Beyond unity, she said, is sovereignty. The word slid into a place inside me that had been waiting for it. Unity is perfect use, Tiamat went on. Sovereignty is ownership. Unity writes inside the rules. Sovereignty chooses a rule for a narrow slice and reality accepts it because it believes you. Lyra tapped her sternum. At peak radiant, the best of us brush it. One heartbeat where space steps aside because you told it to, or flame refuses to burn because you decided this ground is yours. At divine, it isn't a moment. It's a state. That edge you keep pushing with gray, that's the door. I thought of my wings of eclipse, pages that make two places touch because I say they do. The clean ring of world's edge when the world agrees this line is truth. The silence after a right cut when the road seems to relax. Sovereignty. The ache had a name. You can carve to it alone, Tiamat said. It would take longer and you would bleed in all the wrong places. Or I can point at 3 stones so you don't snap an ankle in the fog. If I point too much, you won't learn the parts that matter. So point, I said. But don't walk it for me. Good, she said. Then hear this. Stop treating gray as a clever tool. Treat it as a place you rule. Stop asking it to help you do things. Tell it what your small circle will obey, and pay the cost to make that true. Lyra nodded. And train with someone who won't break while you learn. Meaning you, I said. Meaning me, she said. You are closest to my strength here, and your gray pushes in directions my harmonics can lean on. We are both reaching for sovereignty. Training together wastes less time. What does that training look like? I asked. Boring, Lyra said, almost smiling. We start with clean endurance. No chaos. You hold a chosen state while I push one variable at a time until it breaks. Then you learn where and why. Then we trade my state, your pressure. When we both can hold for an hour under full load without slipping, we change the field and do it again. Afternoons with me, Tiamat added. No clean lines. Pressure that does not care about your plan. The world does not ask your permission before it hurts you. Of course it doesn't, I said. Schedule? Morning Lyra, afternoon me, Tiamat said. Evenings with your family unless the world is burning. If it is, you will know. I nodded, then asked the bad question anyway. What happens if Akasha falls? Silence held for one full breath. Down on the flats, a redeemer laughed too loud at a medic's joke and then apologized. Someone zippered a case like they were trying not to wake a sleeping child. If Akasha falls, Lyra said, we stop counting years, we count hours. And we spend them getting as many children as we can onto boats that can reach places she cannot quickly. Then we fight with what remains. I filed it in the cabinet you hope you never open. But you keep the key. Tiamat's hand came to my shoulder, warm and solid. Do not carry this alone, she said. You have a habit. It works better when I do, I said. It doesn't, she said. You just survive it more than you should. Lyra's eyes warmed. Very human, she said. Guilty, I said. Another thought tugged. What about Luna? Softness moved through Tiamat's face in a way she keeps for exactly two people. You asked if she is ready for all truths, she said. Some. Not all. Her duty binds her to you, but she is not a tool. She is someone I love. I will not load her with weight she cannot set down unless there is no other choice. The knot in my chest loosened a notch. Thank you. Lyra glanced back at the crews. No one was close. One last piece, she said. Do not let sovereignty turn you into a soloist who refuses the choir. Other sovereignties exist. Tiamat's. Mine. Even small ones, Rachel's over a field hospital, Ian's over a wing in weather. The best kind plays well with others. The dangerous kind pretends it doesn't have to. Rachel will quote that at me during breathing drills, I said. She will be right, Lyra said. Tiamat straightened. The soft edges closed. The day moved again. Eat, she said. You didn't finish your tea. Rachel isn't here to bully you into something green. I tried, I said. It tasted like regret. Cantari tea is better, Lyra said, actually laughing. We'll fix that. We walked back toward the inner ring together, 3 shadows long on the flats. Crews waved. Ian shouted about flight paths and got a thumbs up from a tired engineer. Lyralii was with Rose, filing what had been a test into what would be law. Marcus turned the day into supply lists with the speed of a man who has practiced. Reka caught my eye, read the set in my shoulders, and let her breath go. Luna slipped to my side without a word. Her fingers brushed mine. Was that the talk where they tell you the bigger thing? She asked softly. It was, I said. Her golden eyes searched my face. Are we all right? We are, I said. We have work. The good kind. She nodded and leaned her shoulder against my arm for 3 steps, then pretended she hadn't. We loaded up. The convoy rolled toward Valdris under a sky that looked wider than it had that morning. The 7 would plant their first pylon as soon as weather allowed. If it didn't, they'd wait a day and try again. That alone told me we'd chosen the right allies. I watched the road and let the new word sit where it belonged. Sovereignty. Not a prize. A responsibility shaped like a blade. Not I have a tool. But this small circle of the world obeys the story I will pay to make true. The demon overlord had built hers from nothing, against her own people's rules. Younger than Tiamat, sinless by their measure, and still she rose and ruled the 7 who were born marked. She broke a goddess dragon at her peak and kept going until only Akasha could stall her. That's the scale. Morning with Lyra to hold a state until my teeth hurt. Afternoon with Tiamat to remember the world's teeth. Evenings with my family because if I build a throne and lose the reason for it, I deserve whatever falls on me. One horizon at a time. The permit meeting took 8 minutes. That's how I knew it was real. We gathered in a secure room off the palace's operations wing. No ceremony, no press. A wall screen showed Stormgate Flats with 3 test cells highlighted. The Queen and King stood at the head of the table with the focus of people who sign things that can move an army or stop one. 3 conditions, Queen Lyralii said. No media or private drones. Hard stop on the first drift alert. Full logs to the Royal Ward Office within 24 hours. Accepted. Reka answered for our side. She stood to my left, posture easy, eyes already counting exits and angles. Marcus Vizirian tapped the tablet. This is a training event, not a demonstration. If it starts to look like a show, we pull it. Understood, I said. He looked at me for a beat like a man who has seen too many fields and still shows up for the next one. Then he signed. The Queen added her signature. Protocol Officer Miraday took the file, slid a coded key across the table to Reka, and passed out clipped permits with the royal crest and today's timestamp. Authority delegated, Mira said. Captain Celine Vyr commands the outer cordon, Chief Ward Engineer Cade Opolis owns the site wiring, and medical answers to Saintess Rachel for the session. If anyone asks, that's the chain. She nodded once and left, already on her radio. The royals didn't linger. Good luck, Lyrali, I said. Bring back clean numbers. They were gone in a whisper of boots and a door that didn't slam. Tiamat waited until the room was ours again. We keep this simple, she said. No gray, no miracles. We're adding laws to your sword unity, one small truth at a time. Lyra, calm and steady, met my eyes. I'll provide wind and light shears. No spikes, no tricks. Serafina tapped her pencil on a notepad lined with precise boxes. Clocks are synced. Drift thresholds are marked. If I call a halt, we halt. Rachel's voice carried that warm tone that presses things into order without getting loud. Your vitals stream to me. If heart rate or neural load crosses the line we agreed on, I pull you. You will not argue. I won't, I promised. Security, Reka said, reading from her slate while moving. Outer ring under Captain VYR. Tag drones only. All others are dropped. Access badges color-coded. Evac lanes clear. If someone uninvited blinks, Celine blinks faster. Copy. Celine's voice came through the wall speaker. Cool, professional. Tuning team is me and Lyra, Tiamat added. Lucifer may observe if he wants a bad seat. He doesn't touch the dial unless I point at him. Lucifer, leaning in the doorway like he'd been born there, spread his hands. Bad seat accepted. If his sudden appearance felt abrupt, there was a simple reason. He'd landed in Valdris an hour earlier on his way to a closed-door consult with Lyra about the Northern Anchor Plan. Ian had pinged him. Tiamat had cleared it. The North wanted eyes on how we were training toward sovereignty, and Lucifer was already in the air. He stuck the landing and walked in. We rolled within the hour. Stormgate Flats test cell B looked like what it was, an empty, honest piece of ground that already knew how to be yelled at. The inner ring went up inside 30 minutes. Simple poles to mark the line, clean chalk arcs on packed soil, for kill switch pylons at the corners. The outer ring set beyond that, Royal Guard trucks, a row of med tents, engineer vans with their doors open and cable spines running neat. Chief Cade Opolis walked me through the wiring like he was showing a new tech their first clean install. Ward Lattice is live on a 3-layer weave, he said, tapping a schematic on his tablet. Layer 1 reads stress. 2 and 3 damp if 1 starts to sing wrong. If your cut tries to teach the ground bad habits, I'll hear it. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me, he replied. Follow the lines. Serafina set her measurement tripods at 12 points around the ring, then checked them by hand like the instruments would lie if she didn't look them in the eye. Timestamps are true. We're logging angle, pressure, arc length, and variance. Drift alarm at 0.5%. Rachel showed me the med tent. She pressed my finger to a sensor, checked the feed on her tablet, and then looked up at me with a small smile that makes people do what she asks even when they thought they wouldn't. Water before we start, she said. 2 sips before each run. Breathe on 4s. I drank. I breathed. Reka walked the perimeter and pointed out lanes like a guide pointing out exits. If I say out, you jump the line and keep moving until you hit the blue tarp, she said. Don't look back. I will be looking back for you. I nodded. Tiamat and Lyra moved to the center of the ring with me. Lyra rolled her shoulders and the air listened. A soft crosswind formed, steady and honest. Tiamat's presence settled the ground the way a hand can settle a skittish horse. Baseline 3 drills, Tiamat said. We end the session early if you get greedy. Understood, I said. I drew Valeria. She flowed into a simple sword, no plates, no extra edge, just balance that felt like home. Drill A, Tiamat said. No bounce. I pictured a clear sphere around my hand and forearm. The tiny law I wanted was simple. On first contact inside that bubble, the edge would bite instead of chatter, even if the wind pushed. Lyra nodded. Crosswind at 3 meters per second. I stepped into the line. First touch, the edge bit clean. The cut stayed neat. Serafina's pencil made a small, satisfied dot. Again, Tiamat said. Second pass, same. The wind tugged. The edge obeyed the law anyway. Third with shear, Lyra said. The wind changed shape, same speed, but a small tear in it like a snagged seam. I felt the chatter before it started and tried to force the bite. Forcing failed me. The tip jumped a hair. Seraphina's tablet chirped. Drift point 7, she said. Stop, Rachel ordered, decisive and calm. I stepped back, shook my hand once, and breathed in fours. Drink. Reset. No one looked disappointed. This was the work. Reset the wind, Tiamat said. Lyra smoothed the shear. I reminded myself the law was small on purpose. First contact, bite. Nothing more. I made the cut. Clean. Seraphina's dot returned. Drill B, Tiamat said. Shortest line between two chalk marks. Seraphina had drawn 2 marks on the ground 6 meters apart. The rule was narrow. When the blade moved between them, it stayed on the shortest possible line regardless of crosswind. No flourish. No speed games. The wind tugged left then right in a slow cycle. Cut. The line held true. Second pass, same. Heat shimmer, Tiamat said without looking. Lucifer raised a hand, and the air over the chalk wavered like a road on a hot day. It wasn't a big change, but it made the line look like it was somewhere else. I started the third pass and overcorrected. Valeria nudged my palm in warning. I ignored her. The point wobbled a degree off true. Seraphina's tablet beeped again. Stop, Rachel said. No judgment, just the end of a rope. I stepped back and exhaled. Sorry. Rachel shook her head. Don't be. That's the point. Tiamat's eyes were easy and exact. Lock it at 70% and finish the set. I cut slower. The line stayed honest. My shoulders unlocked on their own. Cade's voice came over the inner channel. No ward damage. Lattice shows no bad habits learned. Reka lifted a hand at the perimeter. Pad clear. Drill C, Tiamat said. 1 breath arcs. Seraphina chalked a half circle on the ground. I had 1 breath, no more, to draw the arc cleanly and finish without wobble. First pass, clean. Second pass, clean. Third pass, my lungs tried to buy me another half beat and my wrist followed. Drift chirp. Rachel's hand went up. We stopped. Reset. On the 4th pass, I took the breath I had and nothing extra. It held. We wrapped the baseline the way professional crews like to wrap things. Quiet, no victory lap. Everything folded and labeled so the next run starts where this one ended. Lyra met me by the chalk line. Tomorrow, we put those same tiny laws under motion, she said. No new tricks. Just the same truth while your feet move. I'll be there, I said. A runner from protocol handed Reka a sealed slip. She scanned it, then slid the summary to me. The Concord had requested that 2 Western envoys attend our next session as observers. No data pulls, no interference, just eyes behind the outer ring. Names were bolded. Crown Princess Callie Ashbluff and Crown Prince Jean Ashbluff. Old allies. They'd worked under me when Ouroboros was still clawing its way into something real. Reka looked up from the slip, measuring. They can come, she said. We'll brief them on ground rules. Loop them in, I agreed. Callie respects lines. Jean will, if you stare at him while you say it. Lucifer snorted. I'll help stare. We drove back to Valdris with a small stack of clean numbers. It didn't feel like much. That's how I knew it mattered. I slept well. The next morning started with the same quiet focus. Celine's guard checked badges. Cade's crew ran continuity on the lattice and marked 2 pylons that wanted a nap. Seraphina updated the array calibrations and swapped a tripod that didn't like the wind. Rachel restocked the med tent and bullied me into stretching before tea. Reka ran 3 short security drills until the outer ring moved like 1 person. We met in a side room for a last check. Tiamat drew 2 small circles on a slate with her fingertip. Yesterday you taught your edge 2 truths at rest, she said. Today you teach them while your feet move. Same power. Same restraint. Lyra nodded. I'll bring the wind up 1 step. No surprises. Lucifer rolled his shoulders. I'll float and keep my mouth shut unless called. Unexpected sentence, Reka said dryly. Write it down, he replied. We rode back out. Stormgate Flats looked the same, which was the point. The inner ring set clean. The outer ring watched. The air had that quiet feel before an orchestra starts. Moving no bounce first, Tiamat said. Cones are set. Keep the bite on first contact while you snake through. If drift chirps, you stop. Lyra brought the crosswind up. I started slow. Bite held. Turn. Bite held. Turn. On the third cone, the shear changed shape. I felt the chatter rise. Let go of the urge to force it, and let the law do its job. The bite held. Seraphina's pencil moved. Rachel kept me drinking between runs. We did it again, a touch faster. It held. Moving one breath arc next, Tiamat said. One breath means one breath. No credit for drama. She chalked the arc. I moved, counted the breath by feel, and finished with just enough left not to cheat. Twice clean. On the third, I tried to turn it into a picture instead of a cut. The chirp sounded. Rachel lifted a hand. We reset. I made the small things small again. It held. Light pressure, Tiamat said, lifting her eyes toward the watcher in white. Lucifer. You can steer. You cannot hit. His job is to land one clean no-bounce bite and one clean one-breath arc while you make him choose bad angles. If he enlarges the law, we stop. Lucifer came down lightly, took the line opposite me, and gave me exactly the kind of pressure that makes old habits flare. Felt like sparring with a river that has opinions. Twice I tried to widen the truth to meet him. Twice I heard Rachel clear her throat, which was more effective than any alarm. On the third pass, I kept the bite small and it cut anyway. On the fourth, I took the single breath I had and finished the arc on time. Lucifer raised his hand and stepped back. Clean, he said. Cade's voice came through. No ward damage. Lattice stays boring. Good, Reka said. Boring keeps people alive. That was the session. No drama. No broken ground. Two small truths now able to survive my feet moving and someone smart pushing me offline. On the way out, another slip found us. Ash Bluff flight on approach, Miraday said over the line. Crown Princess Callie and Crown Prince Jean will be wheels down by dusk. They'll brief with Captain VYR and observe tomorrow's block. Clear them, Reka replied. Tag their drones. If they brought more than we agreed, we park them. Understood. Back in Valdris, we filed logs to the ward office and the Concord pool. I ate dinner with Luna and tried not to talk shop while she talked about the way the sunset had looked from the med tent. Like the sky was practicing a new color. I didn't quite succeed. She didn't mind. Day 2 at Stormgate Flats looked the same from a distance. Same chalk arcs, same poles, same guard trucks parked like patient animals. Up close, everything was tighter. The engineers had rerouted 2 cable runs to reduce noise. Seraphina had added 4 more tripods. Rachel had a second screen for vitals. Reka had pushed the tape line another 5 meters back. Lucifer was already there when we rolled in, hands in his jacket pockets. Eyes on the flag streamer's chief Cade had hung to make crosswinds visible. He'd flown down last night after finishing relief flights in the north. Tiamat wanted a watcher who lives for precision. He qualifies. 2 new observers stood behind the tape with Concord badges. A Tidewalker caster, blue-gray hair, serious eyes, and an Umbral adept wearing a plain black mantle. They didn't speak. They just watched. Fine by me. Cade walked me past the pylons like yesterday. Same weave. We added a heartbeat monitor to the lattice, he said, tapping the schematic. If your cut starts trying to teach the dirt rhythm it shouldn't have, I kill it. Kill it, I said. Seraphina checked my time tag on her board. Clock's true. Drift alarms set. I tuned 2 extra mics for blade hiss. Rachel pressed my finger to the sensor again. Water, she said. I drank. Breathe on 4s. I breathed. Reka's hand rested on her radio while she watched a small private drone meander toward the outer ring. It dropped out of the sky a second later without fuss. Captain Celine VYR didn't announce it. She just did her job. Tiamat and Lyra took the center with me. Lyra rolled her shoulders. The wind formed the way a good dog sits when asked. Steady, knee-high honest. We repeat A and B to warm up, Tiamat said. Then we add motion. I drew Valeria. No armor. No crown. No gray. Just a blade set to do what I command and nothing else. Drilla, no bounce, went clean twice, then dirty when Lyra added a small shear. I heard the chatter starting, backed off one step, and reset the promise. First touch bites, that's all. Third pass clean. Seraphina's pencil made a dot. Rachel watched my pulse without looking worried. Good. Drill B, shortest line, was the same story. 2 true, 1 wobble under heat shimmer, then fixed when I slowed down and respected the rule. Cade's voice crackled on the inner line. No bad habits learned, he said. We moved on. Drill C, Tiamat said. Keep those same small laws while your feet move. Slow or full? I asked. Walking pace first, she said. Then you can pretend to be a storm. Lyra said a slow crosswind with a lazy cycle, nothing nasty. I stepped into Tempest Dance at half speed, the version you teach a child so they don't trip over their own ankles. No bounce and shortest line rode with me. First pass, clean. Second, clean. Third, the wind changed its mind mid-step and my edge tried to listen to my eyes instead of my rule. The tip drifted a hair. Seraphina's tablet chirped. Stop, Rachel said, warm and firm. I stopped, shook my hand once, and smiled. It's fine, she added without looking up. You felt it early. Good. Tiamat tapped the chalk. Smaller promise, she said. First 3 steps only. Then 5. Then 7. I nodded. 3 steps, perfect. 5, a hint of wobble on the last one. 7, clean again after I remembered to set the law before I moved. Not while. Seraphina's dots lined up like a neat row of stars. Again with light shear, Lyra said. She adjusted the air in a way my ears couldn't track but my skin could. This time I didn't try to stare the line straight. I let the law carry the edge. It held. Lucifer's voice came from the tape, mild. Your eyes keep wanting to choose the prettier path, he said. Make them ride in the back seat. Noted, I said. Drill D, Tiamat said. Lyra, give him your domain light. Gentle. Lyra didn't flare anything visible. The sky didn't change color, but the field got clearer. Colors cleaned up. Edges looked a little too crisp. This is what Centauri harmonics do to a place, they tidy it. The trick of Drill D was simple to say and annoying to do. Keep the earlier promises while someone else's neatness tried to nudge my sense of straight. The mind loves tidy lines. The cut has to love true ones. I made a new small rule and spoke it in my head. Sight does not move my edge. Edge follows chosen vector, not chosen view. I stepped. The law held. Seraphina's pencil moved fast for once. Good set, she murmured. Rachel's screen stayed green. Tiamat's eyebrows lifted a millimeter. Her version of a pat on the back. Again with a clock, Seraphina said. I want timed runs. We did 10. Times inched down. Drift stayed under 0.3. Cade said nothing, which is the best kind of report from Cade. A chime sounded at the tape. 2 more arrivals. Callie Ashbluff and Jean Ashbluff crossed the line after Reka checked their badges. Both in simple field clothes, not court. Jean had his usual unreadable look. Callie had a small, tired smile that meant she'd taken a night flight and didn't care if anyone saw the circles under her eyes. Jean raised a hand. We'll stand quiet, he said. Just watching. Rules are taped on the cone, Reka said. No radios, no notes, no touching anything that hums. If you get bored, you can help carry water. Callie bumped my shoulder lightly as she passed and pitched her voice low. You look good, she said. Less haunted. Working on it, I said, and got back to work. Drill E, Tiamat said. Target selection under motion. Lyra, give him 3 phantoms. 3 faint light forms flickered at the far chalk. A circle, a triangle, a square. Seraphina marked the circle as true with a tiny chalk dot only she and I knew about. Lyra's domain wanted to make the triangle look more interesting. I set a rule that felt like a cousin to the last. Choose once, then stop choosing. The edge doesn't wander. I moved walk speed, then jog. Cut the circle clean. Again with the wind pushing. Still clean. Then a faster set. The triangle tried to drag my eye toward it. I ignored it. The circle opened, neat and dull. Tiamat nodded. Faster. We built speed until the dance started to feel like the real thing. For half a heartbeat, a bad habit tried to climb out of my bones. Reach for gray to make the page flatter. I told it no. The line held without help. Rachel's voice came on the line, still warm. Heart rate at target, neural load under the mark. Keep it there. Lucifer called. One honest mistake now, so we all remember you're human. I laughed, then caught myself before I let the laugh loosen my wrist. The run finished clean. Serafina tapped her board. Point to drift, she said. Good. We broke for water and a quick debrief. The Tidewalker observer stepped up to the tape and bowed a fraction. Thank you for allowing observation, she said, careful with her words. Thank you for following rules, Reka replied, equally careful. Cade leaned his elbows on his van door. The ground learned nothing stupid, he said. That's as close to praise as Cade gets. Next, Tiamat said. We mix your laws and add one more. Return to true after a bad first touch. I nodded. That one mattered. In fights, the first contact isn't always clean. Sometimes wind shards or a wrist slips. The edge needs to come home fast. I wrote the rule small inside my head. If the first millimeter fails, the second belongs to me. Lyra set a jagged shear right at the start point. It broke the first millimeter like it was born to do it. The second millimeter fell into my line. The cut ran true. Serafina's pencil made a bigger dot. That's the one, she said. We repeated it until the shape was in my bones and not just my head. Then we added motion again. Then we added a clock again. The dot stayed inside the safe box. My lungs did their job. My head stayed quiet. Toward the end of the session, Tiamat stepped into the ring and stood 10 meters away, empty hands, still as stone. Now, she said, walk to me with your law intact, and touch my sleeve without my wind knocking you offline. Her wind is gentle until it isn't. Even in a simple test like this, it nudged every lazy thought I had about straightness. The urge to use gray pressed at the edge of my patience. I told it to wait outside. I walked. The edge stayed where I told it. The sleeve brushed the flat of Valeria's blade. Tiamat looked at my wrist and then at my face. Again, she said. We did it 5 times. The 4th one drifted a hair. Rachel said stop before I decided to force it. We reset. The 5th one was clean. Finish, Tiamat said at last. Serafina called out the numbers, drift averages, time segments, clean sets. Rachel read off my vitals. Stable. Cade said his lattice had nothing to complain about. Lyra said, you kept the edges of your promises small. That is why they held. Callie came closer, eyes bright. You're stacking truths, she said. Feels good to watch. Jean nodded once. The habits are changing, he said. That's his way of saying well done. Lucifer tilted his head. Don't chase speed yet, he said. Make boredom clean. Speed will come. Understood, I said. As we packed, Protocol pinged Reka. She read, then lifted her eyes. Concord Anchor Council just approved the coastal site, she said. First pylon window is in 40 hours, weather and tides permitting. They want you and Lyra as co-anchors for the activation pulse. Lyra looked at me. You have room after tomorrow's session? I'll make room, I said. Tiamat folded her arms, satisfied in the way only she can manage. Good. Tomorrow we run the same laws on moving targets, then you rest. After that, you carry a tiny piece of the world with Lyra and set it down where it belongs. The Tidewalker observer bowed again. Our crews will be ready, she said. We loaded up. The flats went quiet behind us, chalk lines already scuffed by the wind. I felt tired in the right way, hands a little shaky from focus, head clear, heart steady. Back at Valdris, Celine logged the security report. Cade filed his lattice notes. Rachel sent my vitals to the Royal Ward office with the other logs. Serafina spread her charts on a long table and started drawing neat lines I'll never fully understand. and Reka drank her tea like it owed her money. Callie and Jean cornered me in the hall before I could escape. "You looked like yourself out there," Callie said. "I am myself," I said. "Good," she replied, "because the Western Council wants you to consult on barrier logic after the pylon. We'll keep it short." Jean added, "We'll fly with you. You shouldn't go alone." "I never do," I said, and meant it. "Tomorrow we run again. After that, we help plant a pillar in the sea. One small truth at a time." I woke before the palace lights eased to morning. Habit. Today felt like a clean board. No speeches. No drama. Just work I could stack. The ops wing was already awake. Reka stood by the wall display with coffee and a slate. Serafina had a pencil behind her ear and a neat stack of blank notepads. Cecilia leaned against a column with that calm that makes other people fix their posture. Tiamat and Lyra arrived together, quiet as rain on stone. The Vizirian royals kept this one small, no entourage. King Marcus signed a 2-line authorization and slid it back. Queen Lyralii nodded once. Done. 3 rules for Stormgate Flats. No media or private drones. Hard stop on the first drift alert. Full logs to the Royal Ward Office today. We all agreed. The permits hit Reka's hand. We moved. Before we left, Lyra gave us a short threat brief. She kept it clinical. "Concord watchlist item," she said, bringing up a clipped image on the screen. "Pink hair, smiling wrong. Alias Red Chalice Emissary. Human. Extremely high kill record against several of our outposts. Do not engage if sighted unless you are divine rank or have a divine sponsor present. If she appears near our operations, you evacuate and I handle it." Nobody argued. The room tightened in that quiet way good teams do when a real problem is named. Lucifer was already in Valdris. He'd arrived days ago for the Concord talks and never left the flight decks. His fiancées, Dia Solarin and Siola Moyong, stayed in the north to keep the lights on while he built air routes with Ian. Between them, the sky felt honest. Stormgate Flats was cold and perfect. We set the inner ring fast, poles, chalk arcs, for kill switch pylons. The outer ring set wider. Guard trucks with hatches open, 2 med tents with heaters humming, an engineer van with its door off so cables could run clean. Captain Celine VYR took the perimeter without noise. Chief Ward Engineer Cade Opolis walked me through the lattice again. He always will. Repetition saves lives. 3-layer weave, he said, tapping the schematic. Layer 1 listens. 2 and 3 damp if 1 starts singing wrong. If your edge teaches the dirt a bad habit, I hear it. I won't, I said. Good. Don't. Serafina planted 12 measurement tripods in a tight pattern like a small forest. She checked each by hand. Her clocks are true because she refuses anything else. Cecilia stood with the engineers and asked 2 short questions that changed where they ran their cables. She sees angles most people don't. Rachel clipped my finger to the tablet feed. 2 sips before each run, she said. Breathe on 4s. If I call stop, you stop. I will, I said and meant it. Her voice always sinks past the part of me that wants to sprint when walking is smarter. Reka traced my exit lane in the dirt with her boot. If I say out, you go to blue tarp and you don't look back. I'll do the looking back. Lyra rolled her shoulders. The air settled into a steady crosswind like a patient breath. Tiamat placed her palm on a pylon head and the ground decided to be calm. No gray today. No domains. Just the blade and 3 small truths. Drill A, no bounce. The law I wanted was tiny. First touch inside a hand-sized bubble bites clean, no chatter even in wind. Valeria set as a simple sword, no armor, no tricks. I stepped, cut, stepped again. The edge kissed chalk and obeyed. Serafina made a small dot on her page. Then another. Lyra added a faint shear to the wind. Not a trick, a nudge. I felt chatter forming, tried to force the bite, and lost it by a hair. Serafina's tablet chirped. Rachel said, stop, warm and final. I reset, breathed on 4s, drank, and did it right. The dot returned to the little cluster on Serafina's sheet. That cluster was the point. Drill B, shortest line. 2 chalk marks 6 meters apart. The law stayed narrow. The blade takes the shortest path between those marks. No flourish, no speed games, no letting wind lie to my hands. Twice true. Then Lucifer, watching from the truck's shade, threw a light heat shimmer across the line.
My eyes lit.
Valeria nudged my palm. I almost ignored her. I didn't. Slow pass, true line. Serafina didn't smile often on sight, but the corner of her mouth moved. We ran a clean third set. Cade called out, "No bad habits learned." From the lattice, Captain VYR never had to raise her voice. Rachel's line on my vitals stayed inside our rails. Tiamat didn't say enough, which meant we were doing exactly enough. We were halfway through packing when I walked the inner edge and caught Lyra's eye. She knew why. We stepped just beyond the chalk, close enough that Reka could still see me if she turned her head. The light was flat and kind. "About your brief," I said. "Red Chalice Emissary." Lyra waited. "She's good at not adding words you don't need." "Leave her to me," I said. "Alisara is mine." "There," said Clean. "No Emma. No past life. Just the truth I can carry." Lyra's eyes didn't harden. They went very clear like good glass. "You are too weak," she said. "No bite. Balance." I didn't get angry. A year ago I might have. I thought about the last time Alisara and I met, low radiant then. She let me live because she was finished with me, not because I could stop her. Even now, with mid-radiant weight in my bones, the gap was real. "I'm stronger," I said. "Not enough." "Not enough," she agreed. "We train. When numbers say yes, not your pride, we revisit it." "Deal," I said. Tiamat joined us, cool shadow on dust. "You're trying to jump to the roof," she said. "Lay the next plank instead." "I will," I said. She inclined her head. "Sword first. Truths you can keep under motion. When they hold under pressure you did not choose, we add to them. Then we talk again about roofs." We walked back in. Reka signed the site clear with a clean radio word. Serafina packed her tripods like closing a toolbox. Cecilia handed Cade a revised cable plan for tomorrow's wider array and got a quiet thank you he rarely gives. Rachel made me drink one last time. Valeria slid back into a sheath I didn't wear and hummed in my head like a cat happy with a tidy room. Lucifer and Ian stood over a floating map, drawing flight lanes. He glanced up. "Dia and Ciola sent 3 letters," he said. "All 3. Don't do anything heroic."
Il propose, oui obey.
"For once," I said. "For once," he said, and let himself grin. We warped back to Valdris in 3 blinks. The palace smelled like tea and hot copper, the smell of an old place working. I showered, ate something Rachel would approve of, and stretched my hands open and shut until the small muscles stopped buzzing. The afternoon held a short Concord logistics block, shipping windows, rescue drills if a pylon test cracked something we didn't intend to crack. Cecilia killed a showy supply route and replaced it with one that wouldn't jam. Serafina stole an extra hour for clock sync along the coast because tides ignore schedules. Rachel added a 10th med kit and said nothing else. She'd already done the work. Callie and Jean showed briefly, Callie to adjust convoy load numbers with Reka, Jean to walk the outer ring plan with Captain VYR. Tiamat watched the room the way she watches the field, quiet pressure that makes people breathe right. Later, I found Lyra on a balcony over the river. We didn't talk about Alisara again. She'd said the only true thing that mattered. Not enough yet. Fine. I know how to make yet smaller. We placed the first coastal pylon at dawn, she said. Your test truths must hold while the ground speaks back. They will, I said. Good, she said. Then we can argue about larger truths. Like sovereignty. Like the steps before it, she said, almost smiling. You do not run up a cliff. Evening settled. I checked Valeria out of habit. She purred. Serafina sent me a small photo of today's page, the little cluster of dots tight around center. She'd drawn a square around them. I sent back a thumb up and promised to keep them there when we add pace. A message from Stella popped over it. A quick calculation for convoy timing and a correction I'd missed. She added 3 hearts and breathe on 4s. I did. In my head, Alisara's smile tried to rise. I pushed it down without hate. That's for later. Today was for a smaller thing I can master. The plank in front of me. First touch bites. Shortest line stays true. Carry through under motion without the shoulder lying. No gray today. No miracles. Just honest work that will matter when loud days come. I slept like a board after the chalk is wiped clean. The chamber for the Concord session had no windows and a very old table polished by hands that remembered harder centuries. No cameras. No streaming. Envoys wore field blacks instead of show colors. This wasn't a treaty ceremony. This was a safety meeting that could change the shape of Earth's sky. Lyra opened with schedule and promise. 3 pylons, 2 coastal, 1 mountain. First in 48 hours if weather allowed. 7 species would supply crews in rotation, but Earth would own the anchors. No binding of mythical beasts. No cataloging people by potential. Every rule we had fought over in drafts now sat like clean lines on paper. Rose wasn't here, but her legal shape was. Queen Lyralii and King Marcus didn't speak until it mattered. When they nodded, the room believed them. Serafina laid out the measurement arrays for pylon stabilization tests. She was at ease in this air. Numbers don't care about rank. Cecilia handed a 3-page memo to the Queen's protocol officer. Supply routing that avoided the 3 families most likely to turn logistics into favors. Cold and useful. Rachel gave medical command structure in 12 sentences a child could follow. Reka drew the perimeter. Captain Viware listened and said, "Copy." Lucifer sat near the back with a flight map hovering over his wrist. He didn't speak much. When he did, people listened. "No press lanes within 5 kilometers, he said. "No private drones, period. Any untagged drone drops. If someone complains, they can complain outside the cordon." Ian nodded along. The air had learned to be a wall you can trust. Then Lyra gave the room the thing it didn't want but needed. "A pink-haired human woman," she said. "No name. No map pins. She attacked several of our outposts long before we came to your world. She did not take or hold. She ruined and moved. She did it to become stronger. Today her power sits just under the level of our divine rank leaders." The room went quiet in a heavy way. Not fear alone. Wait, the understanding that a monster you can't name still wants something from your future. "She is not ours to judge," Lyra continued. "She is your species. But if she strikes at our pylons or our people, we answer. We will not show restraint if she chooses war." I felt the old sharpness rise in my chest and let it drain. Pride wants to talk in rooms like this. Reality is a better voice. I had stood in a hall with Alisara once and survived because she wanted me to. That's not the same as winning. Lyra was right this morning and she was right now. I wasn't ready. Tiamat spoke then, voice level, eyes steady. "This room has 2 jobs," she said. "Anchor the sky. Make no promises your hands can't keep." We moved through progress and pain points. Cecilia flagged 3 political risks and flipped 2 with better contracts. Serafina asked for cleaner timestamps in the mountain plan. Lyra offered Kantari clocks to sync. Rachel and the head of the Redeemers sorted evac corridors that didn't cross heavy equipment lanes. Reka got her outer ring and a veto on VIP clusters. It all held. When the session broke, the envoys filed out with the tired posture of people who'd rather lift something heavy than talk another hour. I caught Lyra in the hall. "Leave her to me," I said quietly. "When it's time." Lyra's eyes didn't shift. "You're too weak," she said again. No softening. No harder either. "If you try now, you die. If you try soon, you die. When your numbers say yes, I will hear you." "I accept that," I said. The words hurt and felt clean at the same time. "Train me." "Yes," she said. "No gray. Sword first." I started to thank her. She shook her head. "Don't thank me for telling the truth. Do the work." I did have one human note to set down. "Lucifer's fiancés couldn't come," I said, "because this day needed a stitch of ordinary. Dia and Siola stayed back to hold the north." Lyra's mouth softened by a degree. "They chose well," she said. Tiamat stepped up. Stormgate in 2 hours, she said. Motion added to your small laws. Rachel owns your line. Serafina owns the clocks. Reka owns the ring. I own stop. Lyra owns the wind. Yes, great guardian, I said. It still feels strange to call someone that who also smiles at children. On my way to gear, Lucifer fell into step beside me. Dia says if you die before the banquet, she haunts you, he said. Noted, I said. Ciola says if you get hurt, she blames me, he added. You should avoid that. I am trying my best, he said, and then peeled off toward the flight decks. We warped to Stormgate Flats again. The ground took us like it knew we'd be back. The inner ring was already chalked. Reka's people work fast. Cade had spent the midday shifting 2 cables because Cecilia told him to. He looked happier now that nothing would trip a medic in a hurry. We ran motion on the same small truths. No bounce while walking. Shortest line while turning. Lyra gave me a steady crosswind that drifted a little when my feet did, like teaching a child to ride by letting the bike wobble until it doesn't. Twice Serafina's tablet chirped. Twice Rachel stopped it before pride could talk. That was the lesson. Do not be proud. Be right. We were packing when the warp pad on the ridge pulsed and 2 silhouettes stepped through. The air folded clean. Callie Ashbluff came first, posture like a spear. Jean came second, smile small and steady. They didn't bring court. They brought travel bags and a lot of work. Callie hugged me with that short, strong pressure that says we've done this before and we'll do it again. Boss, she said, where do you want me? With Reka, I said. You two will sand floors until the building shines. Perfect, she said, already scanning the ring. Jean clasped my forearm and didn't let go fast, which matters. Security panel, then a wall, he said. Pick your wall, Reka told him, and tell me why it's the right one. He grinned because she was speaking his language. They left in a line of purpose that made the guard stand straighter. Back at the palace, the royals gave the Ashbluffs a nod that said, You're here, now work. No parade. No music. It gave the day a feeling I like. Adults doing their jobs because the job can't wait. Night landed while I stood outside with a cup that pretended to be tea. I thought about the woman with pink hair and the way my chest had tried to burn this morning. It didn't burn now. It sat like a stone where I could see it and step around it. If she hit a pylon, 7 races would be there before I drew. If she came for me, I would be ready when the numbers were ready. Not sooner. I finished the cup and went inside to stretch my hands. Valeria hummed in my head, pleased with the neatness of the day. She likes tidy rooms. So do I when the world lets me have one. Morning had the taste of metal and dust, the flat smell, and I was already in the van with Reka before the palace fully woke. We like to beat the noise. Serafina was waiting with her tripods laid out in a line like instruments ready for tuning. Rachel had a fresh case of clips and the look she gets when she's already run 2 mental drills on what to do if my heart forgets it's a team player. Tiamat stood like a calm wall. Lyra rolled her shoulders. The wind decided to listen. Lucifer sent a flight glove down with a courier for me. For luck, his note said, which was his way of saying for discipline. Cade walked me through the lattice again. He will do that every time until this work is done. I respect men who love their lines. Same truths, Tiamat said. Now your feet move. No gray. No gray, I repeated. Drill C, Lyra said. Carry through. Carry through sounds simple. It isn't. The small law I wrote yesterday, first touch inside the bubble bites clean, has to stay written while I cut, step, cut again, pivot, and not let the wind pull the second touch out of truth. It's where impatient people get loud. Loud breaks things. I moved slow. Valeria sat light and honest in my hand. First touch bit. Step. Second touch bit. Pivot. Don't rush the third. Bite. Serafina's pencil made its little dot. I felt my left shoulder try to roll forward for speed and stopped it. Rachel didn't need to call. Reka's radio stayed quiet. The morning stayed good. We added turn work to the shortest line. Lyra bled a little sheer into the crosswind and then took it out again, like moving a target half a finger and watching if I move with it or try to punish the air for lying. Twice I drifted early. Twice Serafina whistled low. Not a scold. A wake-up. I woke up. The lines got honest again. Lucifer arrived midway, not with trumpets, but with flight deck's dust on his boots. He watched from the truck's shade and didn't talk. When I stepped off the ring for water, he just tapped my glove and said, "Dia will send you a better one," and walked away. That's how friends help without becoming a problem. Ian stayed high, scripting air routes over our heads like a careful hand moving chess pieces. The sky stays quiet when someone who loves it is drawing in it. I like that about him. On the third set, Tiamat said, "Add pace." And I felt the urge rise. The urge to show off. It's an old muscle. I let it fade. Pace isn't show. Pace is trust multiplied by breath control. I sped up the feet and kept the touches honest. Serafina's dots stayed in their small neighborhood. Rachel's line on my tablet stayed between our rails. Lyra let the wind sigh in approval. Cade called a short pause and crouched by a pylon. "A whisper in the weave," he said, ear close to the metal. He slid the base a thumb to the left and tapped it twice. "There. The ground wants it there." I repeated the last pass. The whisper didn't return. He looked pleased in his small way, hands on his hips, chin up a touch. Captain VYR intercepted a private drone that tried to creep in from the East Ridge. It didn't belong to any of us. I only noticed because the air changed when her sharpshooter dropped it. No sound, just a pop and a puff of smoke. "Tagged units only," she said on the open channel. The guard answered with one clipped word and went back to watching. We ran cadence next. Same carry-through, but to a count. 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2, breathe. Serafina beat time with her pencil on the tripod leg. Rachel watched the rhythm on my vitals and gave me a tiny nod at the end of each set. That nod makes the world simpler. You finish the work, you get the nod, you drink water. Then you do it again. Cecilia stopped by the perimeter and watched for 5 minutes without speaking. On her way out, she told Cade to protect a cable run with boards so the med team wouldn't trip during a rush. Boring, vital, perfect. Cade had boards down in 2 minutes. Rachel thanked her with a smile that probably added a year to someone's life. We ended at noon. Cade called the lattice clean. Captain VYR called the ring clear. Tiamat didn't say again, which meant stop before the edge. That's a lesson too. Back in Valdris, the Concorde had us for a shorter session, supply timing, crew rotation, rescue drills if a pylon test cracked a thing we didn't intend to crack. Cecilia took 3 supply routes off the table and swapped them for better ones. Serafina demanded 1 extra hour for clock sync before the mountain test. Rachel insisted on another tent and got it. Reka established a veto over VIP clusters again, which is her favorite new toy. Between sessions, I took 10 minutes with my fiancés. Serafina didn't count. She was in all my hours, pencil tapping, eyes bright when numbers behaved. Cecilia sat me down and ran a 3-point list titled, "Don't waste time paying for the same thing twice." And I promised not to. Rose was across a call with the Queen's legal staff, voice like a knife cutting fat off a bone. Rachel pressed a sandwich into my hand and told me to breathe. I asked about Stella. She was in a math corner somewhere scaring adults with fast answers and a braid that wouldn't stay put. Stella texted me a photo of her slate. 3 lines of neat work, then a scribble that said solved in 8 steps. I checked the problem. A nasty travel time puzzle with changing speeds, and wrote back proud of you. She replied with "I'll braid your hair if you keep breathing in 4s. I promised I would. Parenting is strange and good. Afternoon back to the flats. Same work. Motion against small laws until the body stops thinking about it and the hands do it because that's who they are. Lyra adjusted the wind to a pattern that wandered for 3 breaths and then snapped back to steady. It forced my feet to accept the law even when the air felt petty. Twice I wanted to chase the gust. Twice I didn't. Valeria hummed approval when I stopped early on 1 set, which is her way of telling me I'm learning. We added 1 more detail, exit clean. After each run, the blade must leave the last touch without dragging the law behind it. I pictured a small door closing at the end of every line. Close the door, breathe, reset. Serafina liked that image. She drew a little square on her page each time my exit was clean. When I messed one, she put a dot outside the square. The page became a quiet scorecard. More squares than dots. Good enough for today. A thin cloud line rolled in from the sea and made the light flat. Tiamat glanced at the horizon and nodded once. Pack before the wind gets bored, she said. We moved. Poles down, cables coiled, tripods folded. The guards swept the ring like they were erasing a chalkboard. By the time the first gusts arrived, the ground looked like we had never been there. We were stowing poles when the warp at the ridge flared. Callie and Jean stepped through fully this time, no travel dust now, palace badges pinned. Callie went straight to Reka and they began talking in the shorthand only people who have cut through too many messes share. I heard, blue tarp lane stays clear no matter who screams, and copy. That's their bond in one exchange. Jean walked the outer ring with Captain VYR and both nodded at the same places without speaking. He paused by the west access road, knelt, and ran a finger along the gravel. Soft shoulder, he said. Sandbags here or a truck sinks when we're in a hurry. VYR's sergeant was already hauling bags. Evening had a short debrief with royals and envoys. Clean, crisp, no flourish. The first coastal pylon was still on schedule. Weather looked tired but obedient. Tomorrow we'd run the last motion set before we let my sword touch any field that wasn't chalk. After the meeting, Tiamat caught my sleeve in the hall and checked my hands with her eyes, the way an old master checks wood grain. No gray tomorrow, she said again, gentle and firm. You keep these small truths clean. I will, I said. Lyra joined us and set her knuckles lightly against my forearm, testing the steadiness there. Your carry-through is honest, she said. Don't rush adding speed. Let speed grow from trust. Understood. I checked on Stella before bed. She had moved from math to reading and was asleep with her slate under her cheek. I took a photo and sent it to the family thread. Replies rolled in, Cecilia's dry braid holding achieved. Seraphina's small heart. Roses, don't wake her. Rachel's you're breathing in fours tomorrow. We treated the third day like it was the last chance to fix anything small. That's a good superstition. Reka was even earlier than usual. I caught her staring at the flats the way a carpenter stares at a floor and wonders which board will groan when guests walk. Which one? I asked. She pointed at nothing obvious. Fourth pole on the west if someone panics, she said. We move it 2 feet. We moved it. Captain VYR gave the ghost of a smile. She'd already circled that pole in her head. Lyra tuned the wind to a pattern she didn't tell me about. Not a trick. She'd promised no tricks, but closer to life. A steady breath that sometimes forgets itself and stumbles. Tiamat pressed her palm to the ground and the ground agreed to try its best. Add the third truth, Tiamat said. Third truth was carry through under a step, cut, step rhythm where the second blade action begins before the first fully resolves. Hard to do slow, harder fast, dangerous when the wind lies. The law had to hold inside the small bubble at my hand even when timing compressed and the body wanted to lead with shoulder or ego. Keep the bubble small. A law too big is a lie. First bite. Step. Second bite starts before the mind finishes saying first. Seraphina's dots stayed neat. Rachel's tablet stayed bored. Lyra made the wind admit I was right without punishment. We ran the triangle next, step forward, cut across, pivot on the rear foot, step out, cut back. Same truth, new footwork. The urge to swing wide and help the edge showed up. I ignored it. When I didn't, Seraphina whistled low and my body remembered what my brain forgot. On the fourth run, pride tried to sneak into my heel. I almost accelerated to hear the cut sing in the air. Valeria tapped my palm twice. I slowed a fraction. The song stayed inside the work instead of outside it. That's where it belongs until the day you need it to be loud. Good, Tiamat said. That word from her is like a stamp you don't want to peel off. Cade crouched by a kill switch pylon and listened with his ear to the metal. Tiny buzz at 30 hertz, he said, sliding the base a thumb's width. Soil wants this angle. He tapped twice, stood, and nodded. We repeated the last set. No buzz. He looked satisfied in the small way only engineers do. Chin up a touch, hands on hips, nothing theatrical. Captain VYR intercepted another private drone trying to creep over the ridge. One pop, a puff of smoke, then her voice on the open channel. Tagged units only. The guard echoed with one clipped copy and went back to watching. Drill box step, Lyra said. Same truth, faster feet. I moved. First bite, step right, second bite, step back, third bite, step left, exit clean. Twice the wind stumbled. Twice my hands wanted to follow it. I didn't. Serafina's pencil tapped the tripod leg in time. My shoulders relaxed to the beat. Rachel's voice came over my in-ear, warm and soft like it always is when she means to make the world obey. Breathe on fours. My ribs listened. Lucifer arrived mid-morning. Dust on his boots. Jean beside him. They watched from behind the med tent, the right seat for men who can break things by breathing on the wrong minute. When I stepped off the line, Lucifer tapped the glove he'd sent yesterday. Dia says she'll fix the stitching, he said. That was all. Jean shook hands with Cade and asked about lattice damping like they'd been on the same crew for years. Ian stayed high, sketching air corridors for the first pylon convoy. He doesn't draw lines, he draws lanes for people to survive. The sky feels calmer when he's working in it. We added pace, not show. Pace is trust multiplied by breath control. I sped the feet and kept the touches honest. Serafina's dots stayed in their neighborhood. Rachel's green band on my vitals held steady. Lyra shifted the wind to a lazy figure eight. My law didn't care. Cecilia walked the perimeter and stopped where the med path crossed a cable run. Boards, she told Cade. I don't want a stretcher will catching when someone's scared. Boards appeared. Rachel thanked her with one of those small smiles that adds a year to a life. Last set, Tiamat said. Exit clean. Exit clean means don't drag the law behind you like a rag. Close the door at the end of the line. I pictured a little square clicking shut on each finish. Serafina drew the same square on her page every time I did it right. When I messed one, she put a dot outside the square and didn't say a word. The page became a quiet scorecard. More squares than dots by the end. Enough. We took 5. I sat on a pylon case and stretched my hands. Rachel set a cup in my fingers without asking. The tea was exactly the right temperature because Rachel doesn't do almost. Left forearm? She asked. Tight, I admitted. She pressed along the muscles once, not magic, just knowing where to press. Warmth spread. Don't sprint the last set, she said, voice steady. That musical timbre that slides past your stubborn parts and tells them to behave. I nodded because arguing with that voice is like arguing with rain. Stella pinged my slate. A squared plus b squared versus convoy time if A equals lane speed and B equals offload speed? She'd drawn a little right triangle and a cartoon truck with wings. I wrote back lane speed is king until offload chokes. She sent solved, 9 steps will show Aunt Cece and a heart sticker. I sent one back. We finished the morning on rhythm work. 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2, breathe. Reka paced the outer ring, radio at her mouth, not because anything was wrong, but because she likes ready to be a habit, not an event. Captain VYR moved her people once, 2 meters left, to make a lane wider. Jean noticed and nodded. No words. Pros speaking in small moves. King Marcus came with 2 captains and stood still for 5 minutes, watching the cuts, the wind, the feet. Good, he said and left. Queen Lyralii sent 1 word later over the wire. Proceed. It is pleasant to work for rulers who understand brevity when it counts. We wrapped right at the line Tiamat wanted. Cade called the lattice clean, sounding almost disappointed he had nothing to fix. Serafina folded her tripod legs and wrote a single number in a small box that only she and I will ever care about. Rachel put her hand on my wrist, then on her own heart, and nodded. Reka pointed at the blue tarp we use for emergency retreats and said, "You never had to touch it," which is her way of saying, "Well done." Lunch was efficient. Rice, grilled fish, fruit. Lucifer stole half my orange, claimed it was a northern custom, and got away with it because he can make anything sound like a tradition. Jean asked Captain Vyr for 5 minutes with her map and suggested one change to a choke point. She accepted without pride. Lyra ate like a soldier, fast, grateful, already thinking about the next hour. Tiamat drank tea and watched the weather the way a farmer watches clouds. Serafina checked sync clocks for the afternoon tide test at the coast. Cecilia reordered a supply pallet because someone had stacked it for show, not use. Afternoon was shorter by design. "Bank the good day," Tiamat said. We ran 2 sets only, triangle at pace, then box step with a light shear in the wind. No gray, no flare, just work. On the second set, my foot landed a thumb too far outside the chalk. I corrected without chasing. Serafina still drew a dot outside the square. Fair. As we packed, the warp on the ridge flickered and Callie stepped through with a small advance team. Badges pinned, no dust. She went straight to Reka. "Boss," she said. "I shaved time off the convoy load at Point B. Don't say thank you yet. Wait until it works twice." "I'll still say it now," I said. "Then I'll pretend I didn't hear," she said, and grinned in a way that could cut rope. Callie peeled away to bully a forklift into being safer. Jean walked the outer ring again and set sandbags where the shoulder looked soft. Vyr's sergeant was already hauling by the time he pointed. It's nice when people see the same problems. We closed with a short debrief in a side room at the palace. Shipping windows, what-ifs for weather, last-minute vetoes. Cecilia killed a path a noble's cousin tried to open and replaced it with something that didn't smell like favors. Serafina asked for an extra clock sync at the coast because tides don't care about our calendars. Rachel said nothing. She had already prepped everything twice. Lyra looked at the room and said, "We place a pylon at dawn." And no one argued. After, I found Lyra on the river balcony where we'd stood the first morning. The light was softer now, heavy in the way of evenings that know tomorrow is busy. "Sword first," she said without preface. "Sword first," I agreed. "You are very far from sovereignty," Tiamat said, stepping to the rail with us, not unkind. "I know," I said. "Good," she said. "Then you won't try to cheat the distance. You will walk it." "I will," I said, and meant it more than I've meant most things. Lyra studied my hands. "Your small laws held under motion," she said. "Tomorrow you will keep them while the ground speaks back. Same truths. No new ones." "No gray," I said. "No gray," she agreed. We didn't talk about the pink-haired woman. Everyone in this palace knows her without the name. We didn't talk about demon lords or the thing above them that makes old dragons pause. That talk will return when it needs to. Tonight wasn't that. Callie reappeared with Reka. "Pilot drill done," she said, handing over a slate. "Load-in time down by 12%. If it holds at dawn, you can buy me coffee you hate." "Deal," I said. Jean had found a wall again, the kind of wall that looks like it will never be needed. He stood beside Captain Vyr and they both didn't talk for a long minute. That silence is how you know two professionals have nothing to prove to each other. I checked Valeria out of habit, even though she doesn't need it the way normal steel does. She purred anyway. She likes the ritual. So do I. I walked past the med tents. Rachel was arranging clips for the morning in sets of 10. Hands sure, motions small and tidy. She saw me and tilted her head toward the water cooler. I took 2 sips because she'd tell me to if I didn't. "Breathe on 4s, she said, not looking up. I breathed on 4s. Serafina passed me in the hall, tapped her pencil twice against my shoulder, and said, "Clocks," which meant she'd synced every instrument in a 10-kilometer radius and wanted me to know it. Cecilia texted me 3 bullet points. "Don't let VIPs near Corden. Don't let Corden get near VIPs. Eat." I replied copy to all 3. I checked on Stella. She was in a corner with a ward engineer, explaining her triangle truck idea with too many hand motions and a braid that wouldn't stay put. The engineer looked equal parts impressed and terrified. I kissed the top of her head when she paused for air. "Sleep early," I told her. "Dawn is loud." "I'll set 2 alarms," she said, then added, "Breathe on 4s. Like a conspirator, I slept in my own bed. I did not dream. Tomorrow we would lay Earth's first pylon with the 7 at our shoulders. No prophecy, no speeches, just weight going into ground and power climbing a spine we could measure. And somewhere out in the world, a woman with pink hair would be doing whatever she does to become stronger. She wasn't in our room. That was fine. My field was small and true, and it would be the thing that broke her when the time came. For now, strength first, vows later. I lay back in my chair, staring at the ceiling of the Red Chalice's high office. Same hairline cracks as always. The old building breathes with the city. Vent hum, far siren. The buzz of ward lines in the walls. We are on Earth under everyone's noses, and no one sees the knife. A knock. My brother pushed in before I answered, arms full of folders. Elder sister, he said, trying for brisk and landing on anxious. Deputy reports, stipends, shrine audits. 3 complaints about you ignoring the last packet I brought. Corner, I said, not moving. He set the stack where I pointed, fussed the edges square, then looked at me the way he did when we were children and I climbed too high in the storm tree. Allie, he tried again, softer. We need your signature on the Exarch rotations. If we don't cycle the border chapels, people think we've abandoned them. We haven't, I said. I know, they don't. He hesitated. And, Arthur. Always, I said. Then why not finish it? His voice was careful. He is weak by our world's measure, and he knows it. He survives by being useful and not stupid. You're strong enough. Everyone is whispering you could kill him now, before the 7 set their pylons, before he climbs again. Not yet, I said. You always say that. Because he isn't finished. I sat up and the ceiling let me go. If I break him now, I break a half-made blade. Boring. Wasteful. He swallowed the argument he wanted to make. At least sign the stipends. In an hour, I said, standing. Walk with me. The Red Chalice's main hallways look like a hospital on purpose. Bright, clean, no drama. Acolytes bowed as we passed. I didn't return it. Reverence is for gods and I am not one. Not yet. Keep our earth cells quiet, I said as we reached the inner lift. No contact with Valdris. No theater near their ward lines. If any idiot decides to prove devotion by poking at Arthur's people, you shut them down. Yes, he said, tasted bad in his mouth. I will. The lift hummed down 6 levels. No dungeon smell. We run better rooms than that. At the last door I palmed the panel. Locks clicked in a polite sequence and the seal slid open. The room beyond was white and wide. A single reclined chair stood inside a humming frame. No chains. No needles. Pain skews readings. I don't like skew. He looked up when we entered. Golden eyes like his sister's, but darker with months under light. Lyra's twin. I never use his name down here. Names are intimacy. Distance keeps my hands steady. Good afternoon, I said, moving to the console. We continue. He didn't answer. He never does. That's fine. He understands that silence is also a way to speak. I tuned the frame to today's pattern. The display translated his aura into lines I could read. Peaks, valleys, drift. I've seen 1,000 graphs like these. Most were useless. His aren't. The Kantari structure their power like music. You can steal music if you sit still long enough. Walk the braid, I said. Signal. Anchor. Return. Bleed. Show where control is caught and carried. His energy shifted. The frame sang back in fine lines. For soft peaks, the 4th held steady like a finger on a ringing glass. Not sovereignty. I don't care about that word. My road is different. Control. That is my word. My threads rewrite vectors, freeze breaths, halt heartbeats. I want the world to accept my touch as the default, not the intrusion. His graph showed me the moment a system chooses to obey. Again, I said, and he did. My brother stood near the wall, hands behind his back, trying to be furniture. You won't bleed him for more? He asked after a minute. He keeps that question ready like a shield. No, I said. Blood scars the lines I need. I am not a butcher. He eased. He knows I can be worse than a butcher when I decide to be. He also knows I don't waste tools. I saved the pattern and stepped back. The man closed his eyes. I let him have that small dignity and sealed the door with its neat chime. In the corridor, my brother found his courage again. "The 7 accuse you of wiping out their client races," he said, watching my face. "Accuse?" I laughed once. "I did it." Images came easy. Glass cities on the Aurelian trade route, emptied in 3 nights when my crimson threads wrapped their pylons and turned their currents inward. The Tidewalkers' brine scribes hauled from their tidal monasteries, their salt ink books unmade in my hands so their tricks would be mine. Verdant-aligned enclaves that grew their little guardian forests. I taught their roots to strangle themselves and listened to the last breath of a colony that thought vines could hold back will. Not for pleasure, for power. Every race under the 7 hoarded a local trick: binding songs, pressure folds, salt math, dust reading, wind knots. I took their lexicons, fed their best into my threads, and burned the rest. Mercy makes beautiful graves, not strong thrones. "Earth?" my brother asked soft. He always tests the line we draw. "Untouched," I said, "until he is ready. If any of ours forget, remind them I have a long memory." We rode up in silence. I stopped in the office, signed the stipends fast enough to make his shoulders sag with relief, and shoved the stack back at him. "Go," I said. "Feed our people. Keep their mouths shut." He nodded and left, careful not to look like he was fleeing. When the door clicked, I let myself think about Arthur properly. Not the idea of him, the weight of him, the way he smiles right before a cut. The gray pages that make 2 places admit they touch because he says so. The last time he stood in front of me at low radiant, and the choice I made not to end him because I wanted to see what he would become. He is becoming. He killed a calamity like it was a practice dummy and smiled doing it. Good. I need him cut and tempered and singing his true note. Then I will break him, and the sound that makes will be worth the years I've spent tuning. I took the lift to the old service tunnels and walked the length of our underground without hurry. The red chalice on earth is a spine with many ribs. Shrines, clinics, training floors, labs, quiet rooms where faithful sit and listen to their own breath. Men and women bowed as I passed. Some of them were killers. Some were healers. Neither is better. Only useful matters. In the experiment hall, I stopped at the wide glass and watched the threads move. Crimson lines hung from the ceiling like rain held at a moment just before it falls. When I flexed my fingers, the lines surged, and the room obeyed. A block of stone slid without friction, rotated, and settled exactly where I wanted it. I adjusted the humidity in the left third of the room by 2%. I told a droplet to stop midair and it did, glittering like a little dead star. Control, not show. The world should behave because I ask it to, not because I shout. I lowered my hand and the threads softened. On the far table, 6 sealed vials pulsed faintly. Liquid memories taken from the last sanctum I erased, Tidewalker grade. Their pressure harmonics would make my threads better in storms. I had earned them the hard way. 3 days of cutting through salt wards while their monks tried to drown me with the moon. I pulled their rhythm into mine, tightened a loose knot, and smiled when the room's air admitted the change. A junior officer came up behind me, stopped at 3 paces and waited. He knows how to live. "Speak," I said. "Report from the North Docks," he said. 2 of ours tried to interfere with a Concord shipment for attention. The deputy pope sent a stop order. They didn't listen. Captain Mivas corrected them. "Bodies?" I asked. "None left to count," he said. "Good," I said. "Send the deputy my thanks." I flicked 2 threads and wrote a short order in the air. It condensed into a hard ruby sliver with my seal inside. "Carry this to the border chapel at Greywater. They will close for a month. If anyone asks why, tell them the sea demanded silence." He took the seal and fled. I went back to the glass. Control is close. I can feel the last gap like a space between teeth your tongue finds when you're quiet. My threads move through water, stone, air, blood. They bind laws and twist them without snapping. I need them to be accepted, not resisted. I need the world to act as if the thread was always there. That's the last step. Completion. Not a ritual. Not a prayer. A change in self so clean the world nods without thinking. The lift chimed behind me, my brother again pale and determined. "Elder sister," he said, "one more thing. Scouts say the 7 will place their first sea pylon at dawn. There will be witnesses. Should we be there?" "Invisible," I said. "Do not touch. Do not breathe loud. If you are seen, you have failed." He nodded, swallowed, and left. I stood alone and let myself think of a girl who wasn't me, in a life that wasn't mine, laughing in a tiny kitchen at nothing important. The memory comes sometimes like a smell. I don't push it away. It makes the line I walk sharper. Love is a control too when you know where to hold it. I went back to the high office and signed 3 more things because power still lives on paper in old worlds. Then I took my coat and returned to the white room with the humming frame, because one more braid today would make tomorrow easier. The golden-eyed man watched me without hating me. He is smart enough to hate correctly. "Again," I said. He walked the braid. I watched the curve where obedience begins and the lie dies. "Not yet," I murmured and smiled. "Soon." Dawn made Stormgate Flats look brand new. Frost on the grass. Breath like smoke. No banners, no speeches, just the right people in the right places. Reka handed me tea and a look that said keep it simple. Serafina lined her tripods like a small metal forest. Rachel checked clips, checked me, then told me to breathe on 4s. Cecilia stood with the engineer van and quietly moved 2 cable runs to smarter places. King Marcus and Queen Lyralii were already there with signed permits. Tiamat and Lyra walked the chalk together. We kept the ring honest. 4 kill switch pylons at the corners. Poles and chalk arcs inside. Royal Guard trucks out on the hard ground. Med tents warm. Captain Celine Vyr took the perimeter without saying more than 10 words. Chief Cade Opolis ran his palm along the main line and listened to the dirt like it was an old friend. Up high, Ian drew lanes in the morning air. Lucifer's wings stayed stacked just outside our corridor, posting quiet, clear marks across the net. Between the 2 of them, the sky behaved. Stella slid in under my arm with ear protectors hanging at her neck. "You're going to be boring, right?" she said. "The most boring," I promised. We stepped inside the ring. Lyra tuned a gentle crosswind and a low line of light I couldn't hear but could feel in my teeth. Tiamat set her palm on a corner post, and the ground decided not to fight us. No gray, no show, just hands and small truths. "Begin," Tiamat said. I wrote the first truth with my wrist. First touch bites clean, no chatter. Valeria stayed a plain sword in my hand. The edge obeyed. Serafina's pencil tapped a tiny dot in her book. Rachel's line on my vitals stayed flat. Cade lifted a thumb. Second truth. Shortest line between chalk marks, no matter what the air asks for. Lyra let the wind stumble once and come back. I didn't chase it. The line stayed true. Serafina's dot landed where it should. We ran carry through next. Step, cut, step, cut. Keep the law tight around my hand. Exit clean. I pictured a small door closing at the end of each run. Close, breathe, reset. Twice I felt pride try to creep into my heel. Twice Valeria tapped my palm and I slowed by a hair. The cluster of dots on Serafina's page looked like someone had been careful. Then we placed the first spine. No countdown. No drama. Lyra and Tiamat walked to the anchor post with Cade and 2 ward engineers. They set the spine into place, locked the cap, and asked the field to accept it. A thin line of light ran up the post and out along our chalk arcs. The flats didn't flare. They didn't shudder. They just said yes. We stood still for 3 minutes and let the ground make up its mind. Captain Vyr kept everyone at the same quiet distance. Ian stayed high. Lucifer didn't swoop in to be seen. His clear ping hit the net, and then nothing. When Cade finally said clean into his mic, people remembered to breathe. Queen Lyralii and King Marcus walked in without hurry. The king set his hand on the post like he would on a good horse. The Queen looked at faces, trucks, chalk, and tents, then said one word loud enough for the outer line to hear. Good. We didn't pack fast. We packed right. Rachel made me drink twice because the second sip is the one people skip. Serafina folded the tripods the same way she always does so her hands don't have to think later. Reka traced my exit lane with her boot again and left it there. Superstition on purpose. Stella hugged me and declared the whole thing properly boring, which is her highest praise for a dangerous morning. We stepped through a warp and came out into cold sea air by midday. The coastal site was busier but not louder. Local crews already had the outer ring built. Our people slotted into their same roles like a song adding a verse. Salt wind is messier than land wind. Lyra dialed it back until it sounded like a steady breath. We ran one baseline check. First touch, shortest line, carry through, and stopped at the word enough. Tiamat placed the second spine herself. Engineers locked the cap. The post took the load. The breakers did not complain. When the line ran up and out, the sea didn't fight it. It felt like someone had straightened a picture on a wall that had been crooked for years. By late afternoon we were inland again, 2 provinces down, where hills lean into the coast and the wind comes in sideways. Same ring, same hands, same words. Tiamat said, "Begin." And we did. The third spine went in at dusk with a few gulls watching like they owned the place. Cade called the lattice clean in the same flat voice that made my shoulders relax every time I heard it. When the logs came back green on all 3, the Concord pressed the line we'd been waiting on. Provisional member 1 year. Shared lanes. Shared rules. Reviews every quarter. No hugs. No parade. Just the quiet that follows when a big thing works. We warped home to Valdris under a sky that looked relieved. In the briefing room we kept it simple. Cade thanked his crew and went back to counting bolts. Serafina circled 2 numbers, underlined one, and closed her book. Rachel leaned against my shoulder for a breath and didn't say anything. Reka said, "We do it again tomorrow in our heads." And everyone nodded. Ian sent a flight plan for Dawn out to his wing with sleep written at the top. Lyra stepped to me when the room was almost empty. "I'll stay," she said. "My brother is here somewhere. I will not leave while he is." I nodded. "We'll help. When you need it. When I'm strong enough to be useful." She held my eyes and weighed the truth of that. Then she gave a small, tired smile. "Thank you," she said. Tiamat didn't speak, but the approval in her look felt like being told to sit down and drink something warm. I did both. The second day after is always the one that tries to undo the good work. Tired people. Small mistakes. Pride doing laps in empty halls. We treated it like a stubborn door. Steady pressure, no yanking. I woke before the lights and walked the palace once. Valdris felt like a machine cooling down. The ops wing was already humming. Reka had 3 short lists labeled keep, fix, and ignore. She slid me the middle one. It was a page long. Good sign. We spent the morning at Stormgate, not to place anything, just to listen. Cade brought a stethoscope for the earth. He lay on the grass like he was sunbathing and then nodded. "Spine's singing the right note," he said. Serafina set 2 tripods and ran a drift check. The dots she made looked like the dots from placement day. Boring. Beautiful. Rachel adjusted a warder's brace, then made the older woman sit for hot tea and gossip like she was her aunt. Captain Vyr rotated her outer posts without asking anyone's permission. Cecilia reviewed 3 supply paths and killed the one a noble's cousin was trying to sneak back onto the schedule. Reka stood at the blue tarp lane and kept it clear even though we didn't need it. Tradition has weight. From there we warped to the coast. Salt smell. Gull noise. The line along the sea held, and local crews looked 5 years younger than they had the day before. Thank yous were short and honest. One man from the ward office insisted we take a box of pastries for the Saintess. Rachel smiled and took them. I ate one and tried to guess the filling. Serafina told me it was orange peel and almond before I finished chewing. She's always right about food. Inland spine last. Hills and wind. Same checks. Same reports. A farmer leaned on a fence and watched us go by, hat tipped. like we were moving furniture for his mother. That felt right. By late afternoon we were back in the palace for the small formalities that make big things stick. The Vizirian throne room was smaller than usual on purpose. No crowd, no cameras. King Marcus wore working clothes with a formal pin. Queen Lyralii wore the calm that keeps a continent steady. "We won't pretend this made the world safe," the queen said. "But it made it safer. That matters." Tiamat stood behind them, not as a shadow but as a wall you trust. Lyra stayed to their left, hands folded, eyes steady. "On behalf of the southern continent," Marcus said, looking straight at me, "thank you. You kept our ground from breaking." I didn't give a speech. "We kept it boring," I said. "That's all." He smiled with his eyes. "That's everything." He handed me a small velvet case. The southern metal inside wasn't flashy. Dragon and laurel, old gold, simple line across the bottom. Guardian of the line. I don't wear medals, but I held this one with care. It wasn't about me. It was about the ring of people who made Dawn quiet. The Concord envoy read out 2 paragraphs that made our trial membership real. No surprises. Signatures. A handshake with rules attached. Cecilia and Rose, back from a call just long enough to sign something that needed her exact handwriting. Made sure the clauses said what they looked like they said. When it was done, the queen closed the book and nodded. "Work resumes tomorrow," she said. Everyone in the room liked that sentence. We stepped out to the side balcony after. Valdris ran under us like light on water. Stella found me first. She'd been with the ward engineers most of the day, asking questions they liked answering. She barreled into my chest and hugged me like I'd been away a month. "You were boring," she said. "The most," I said. "Good." She held up her slate. A problem about convoy time and triangle lanes stared back at me. She'd solved it 2 ways. I kissed her hair and told her she was perfect. She corrected me. "Almost. That's my girl." My fiancés collected me one by one like they were making sure I didn't evaporate. Serafina tapped my wrist with her pencil twice. A quiet checkmark. Rachel leaned her head against my shoulder and didn't move. Cecilia slid a card into my pocket. 3 bullet points about not letting VIPs near cordons in the next phase. Rose arrived late, tucked a folded paper into my other pocket, and said, "No one sues anyone if we stick to this." I promised to stick to it. Ian came off a warp with wind in his hair and a grin he tried to hide. "Routes held," he said. "No drama. Lucifer says he'll pretend it was all him." "He can have the story," I said. "We'll keep the truth." Lucifer himself drifted by later, stole a slice of orange from a plate like it was a northern tradition again, and asked if Dia and Ciola could send a few of their people to help with air corridors up north if we needed a clone of this work there. "They'll keep things calm," he said. "They're better at that than I am." I said yes. When the balcony thinned out, Lyra found me. Tiamat stood a step behind her, watching the river's silver line like it had old answers in it. "My brother," Lyra said. "No lead-up. Just the thing that mattered." "We'll help," I said. "When you ask. And when I'm not a liability." "You're not a liability," she said. Then, after a breath, "You are not enough for where he is yet. But you will be if you keep walking the way you are walking." "I know," I said. It didn't hurt to admit it. Felt clean. "Good," Tiamat said softly, which is her version of a hug. Lyra's mouth tugged into the smallest smile I'd seen from her. "Thank you for today," she said, and I understood she meant the way we all agreed to be small so the world could be steady. "I'll be here," I told her. "As long as you need the help." She looked at the river, then back at me. "We'll find him," she said. "We will not break the world doing it." "That's our rule," I said. Night fell. The palace lights kept breathing. Crews filed out with tired feet and clean gear. The guard rotated posts without fanfare. Engineers ate bowls of soup and laughed quietly at jokes they'd earned. Somewhere out there, more work waited. That's fine. We've learned how to do work. I walked past the med tent. Rachel was packing clips in sets of 10 again. She looked up, read my face, and gave me the nod that means sleep. I breathed on 4s without thinking. Serafina held a clock up like a trophy. Everything synced to the 10th. Cecilia texted me one word, eat. Reka leaned in a doorway, arms folded, eyes on the hall like she always does when she decides to be a wall. I found Stella already asleep in a chair with her slate under her cheek and a braid that never stays put. I moved the slate, tucked a blanket, and stood there longer than necessary because standing there felt like part of the job. The pylons were in. The lines held. The 7 had our name on their list for a year. Lyra would stay. Tiamat would watch. The Viserians would keep their continent stiff-backed and sensible. My team would keep me boring when boring was what saved lives.